Lovely. Okay, and we are now streaming and recording. Welcome to session 9 of our CSI Midlands game. In our previous session, our heroes continued their exploration of the upper Middlegloom below the southern edge of the Bishopsgate district of the great city, where they discovered that the Lieutenant Uffington's former fiancée, Juliet, survived after a fashion as some sort of undead creature. Apparently, she had been kidnapped by a cult who had fled through the upper Middlegloom, perhaps fleeing the player characters, perhaps fleeing something else. When they realised that they were under attack by these skeletal animated cadavers, and realising they couldn't defend themselves and keep an eye on the prisoners, they decided to kill them. So they slit the throats of the prisoners who were with them. The, perhaps kindly, perhaps cruelly, who am I to judge, the force that was leading these undead decided to save the young woman after a fashion by raising her as an undead. Unfortunately, because of that, she then found herself confined to an old Goman temple or fortification below the sewers of Great London in the upper Middlegloom, and she was seemingly unable to leave it whilst this undead General Serialis was confined there. This led Lieutenant Uffington to attempt to challenge this undead general, who had fear rolling off him almost like a palpable force. The undead general seemed not to want to fight the lieutenant, but had resigned himself to it. It was only thanks to quick thinking and persuasive skills on the part of Jackdaw where he persuaded Juliet to render her former lover, Lieutenant Uffington, unconscious with her newly gained undead strength. Once he was unconscious, Jackdaw was able to remove him from the scene, and the undead general, with a look of perhaps wry amusement on his face, retreated back into the darkness, allowing them to leave. Unfortunately, in that mission as well, they also lost one of their hirelings, Peter, the sewer worker, who had been sent in from the Sewer Shifters Guild to guide them, was unfortunately lost along the way, being killed by some of the undead creatures. And obviously that set their other hireling somewhat on edge. Alan Latham was looking none too keen, and he seemed quite worried about what the Sewer Shifters were going to say to him when they got back and they found out about it. Following that, our heroes offered, with the riches they'd gained, to buy the property from the small gang of brigands that were using a property above this area of the Middlegloom to store ill-gotten gains in. However, having realised that undead were down there, these thieves and bandits were planning to collapse the staircase so that nothing could use it to escape from the upper Middlegloom. However, now that the heroes have purchased the home from them, they're not bothered at all. It's no longer their problem. So they've exited stage left. However, the players have promised, as part of the recompense for allowing them time to delve into the upper Middlegloom, to help them with a heist targeting a rich merchant named Aloysius, who is bringing wine and other such luxury goods into the city in a couple of days' time. Now, Big Mick has gone off to continue making the preparations for that heist, liaising with the gang, etc. And whilst he's doing that, the other three heroes, Jackdaw, Lieutenant Uffington, and the good Friar Dunstan, are obviously free to pursue their own ends. And Jackdaw finds his mind drifting back to a strange incident he had not long after he hooked up with this band of ne'er-do-wells, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, we know that Jackdaw is missing most of his memory and was discovered on the bank of the Great Thames Water near the Witchwood district of the city. He was found by Big Mick and his sister Penny, bereft of much of his memory and covered in strange scars. Over the course of time, they managed to piece together these scars were probably inflicted by the same cult that we've just been discussing. But exactly what happened has never really been discovered, save for another small incident where an apothecary who examined Jackdaw and pronounced him free of the plague when they were trying to go through a bridge gate surreptitiously tucked a small black feather into the assassin's pocket. And Jackdaw finds his mind drifting to that. So we're actually going to pick up the night before the session starts. So as we pick up, you guys are resting in your newly acquired home in the southern portion of Bishopsgate. It's a fairly narrow building because buildings are quite expensive here, being north of the river. You know, obviously it has a cellar and this tunnel down into the upper Middleglue, and there's a couple of stories above that. It's a little bit sparse on furnishings. The bandits were using it as a hideout and a bit of a sort of way station, not really an actual home to be lived in. So you guys are obviously going to have a bit of work to do in terms of like furnishing it if you want to make it into a proper home. But for the minute, it's a place for you to rest that it seems relatively free of the dangers you've been wading through recently. So obviously you've got bed rolls and the like, you carry about with you, your adventurers, you're used to sort of roughing it a bit. So you all sort of settle down for the evening, make yourself as comfortable as you can. Now, meanwhile, as you sleep, Jackdaw, you find yourself having a strange dream. You're languishing in a small stone cell. At first, you're a bit disorientated, as people often are in dreams. Everything's a bit hazy, a bit indistinct. But as you look around, you gradually start to recognise one of the. It looks very similar to the small cells that you saw in the sewers below Bishopsgate, although you're pretty sure it's not exactly the same place, or maybe it's just the dream blurring things, and you gradually start to realise that this is actually a dream or perhaps a memory. As you sort of look down and you as is the way of things in dreams, you can like feel the straw that you're sort of lying in, and you feel a sort of dull throbbing ache in your back. Over to you, Jackdaw.
If I look at my hand, is it covered? Am I wearing clothes? Is it scarred?
You look at your hand and you can indeed see that you have your normal scars on your hand. However, they look fresh, not the sort of slightly faded and angry marks you're used to. And you can see that your hand is visibly shaking as you are holding it up in front of you. You are wearing clothes, but they seem ripped and torn. They remind you very much of the rags that you were wearing when you were originally discovered by Big Mick on the banks of the river. Although they're not as soaked with water and filth as they were when you were first discovered.
Yep. I'm going to roll over and sort of fumble around in the hay, like figuring that I was laying on something hard, even though it's probably the goddamn stone floor. But I was like, there was something under my back, like a stone or something.
Okay, you put your hand down through the straw, and indeed you do touch the cold stone of the floor. However, as you roll over and you look down at the straw, you can see there are spots of blood on the straw and on the stone in places that the straw doesn't quite cover.
Is there any light? Is there a window?
You can see there's a stout-looking wooden door in front of you, and it has one of those small sort of openings in it with two metal bars in it. You can just about make out what seems to be a faint, maybe torchlight, a sort of faint flickering amber light, and as you watch it, it appears to be getting brighter with each second that passes.
Does the door open in or out?
The door appears to open inwards.
I'm going to, if I try to stand up first, how does that work?
You do manage to stand up, although you haven't sort of like bend over slightly. The cell isn't very tall, and literally, if you put your hands out either side of you like that, you can feel the walls. It's almost like a small sort of broom cupboard the size of the place.
I'm going to scoot over, and if the door opens in, I'm gonna sit against the door, and get. I don't know. There's probably nothing of real substance in the cell, so I'm gonna get a bunch of hay, just bundle them up and sort of like twist them, so it's kind of like a rolled up newspaper. But that's the best I can do.
Okay, no problems. As you're doing that, the torchlight continues to get brighter through the little vision slit of the door, and then it's suddenly blotted out as someone steps in front of the door, and you hear very faintly a voice go, quickly, we've got to get you out of here. And then you hear like a of someone like putting a key in a door lock and turning it.
I guess I'm because it wasn't really what I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. So I'm gonna roll away from the door.
Okay, you roll away from the door. It opens, and you see a tall man with a neatly trimmed black beard and moustache. He's wearing robes, which obviously you now know are the robes belonging to the cult of the Laughing God, the sort of reddish robes with a long hood. The hood's pulled down. He looks quite panicked. He's like glancing over his shoulders. He's holding a spitting, glowing torch in one hand, and there's a bunch of keys gripped in his other hand. He looks at you and he says, "Can you stand?"
I nod at him. I'm not going to say anything. I nod, shake my hand. Anyway,
he sort of clips the keys onto his belt. He reaches out and he sort of like he also like moves your head so you're looking at him, and he like stares into your eyes for a few moments, and he says, "Oh, good, they've not finished. We've got to get you out of here before they complete the rest of the ceremony." And he reaches under his robes, and what you'd first thought to be a slight beer belly turns out to actually be like another robe, like tucked under his jerkin, and he throws it at you, and he's like, "Quickly, put that on. I don't know how much time we've got."
yeah, I'll like very awkwardly pull it on because I don't have space and I hurt. So, but I struggled to get the robe on and like pull the hood like way down.
As you're pulling the hood down, you hear somewhere in the distance a bell starts ringing, at which point the man who's just thrown you the robe looks incredibly panicked, and he's like, "Quick, they've obviously found I've knocked out one of the guards and that are taking the keys. We've got to get out of here now. There's a tunnel leading to the river. We might still make it, but we're going to have to go now. Quickly!"
Yeah, and I get out from the cell.
As he sort of like helps you up as you're sort of getting out of the cell, and obviously he sees perhaps some blood soaking through the back of the cloak from your freshly inflicted wounds, and he says, I wish I could have got to you sooner before they'd done the first stage of the." He says, "Tell me, do you know what your name is?"
I don't remember, but I saw some of their faces and I remember their names. That's going to be important for later.
He sort of like clicks his fingers in front of your face, Ben. It's like, "Reynold, stay with me. Reynold, focus. We've got to get out of it. Look, they've done something to you. It's affected your mind, but I was able to get you before they began the set, before they were able to hollow you out completely." And then he shivers as though like what he's thinking about repulses him. And he says, quickly, I can hear them in the distance, and you can indeed hear like soft footfalls, still some distant way in the distance. He's like, quickly follow me, and he'll like lead you out into what appears to be a very similar sort of setup to the previous cult base. Like, it's obviously not the same one, but it's the same sort of worked stone, obviously an ancient building or a basement building that's been repurposed for whatever foul deeds this cult has in mind. You can only see little of it beyond the sort of flickering glow of this man's torch. He's like, quickly follow me, and he starts like leading you off through the darkness. You can hear his footfalls on the stone.
Yeah, and we make it as quickly as we can. Do I leave? By the way, I turn at some point. I turn back to look at like, do I leave bloody footprints? Because I don't actually understand like how badly I'm hurt right now, and I was just trying to investigate. Like, am I leaking all my blood?
Okay, you don't appear to be leaving bloody footprints. However, occasionally, as obviously you're sort of moving around and you're trying to hustle, you do feel like like when you have like a scab or a scar and the surface cracks, and you feel like a little trickle of blood run down your back.
Yeah.
You follow your unnamed saviour through the darkness, and eventually in the distance you hear what sounds like rushing water, and you can see a little circle of light up in the distance. He's like, quickly, the sun's just rising. We've got to make it across the riverbank to Queensgate. We'll be fine then. I've got some friends there. They can help us out. Quickly, Reynolds, follow me.
Did you bring a boat?
He says, no, there wasn't time. Well, I didn't realise they were going to start the ceremony so soon. You're lucky I got to you in time. We might have to swim for it. Tell me, can you manage it, Reynolds?
Of course. I do what's necessary.
As he nods, and as he's leading you, this circle of light grows bigger until you emerge from one of the sewer outlet tunnels, and you can see the Great Thames water flowing by. You glance around, and you think, from obviously using your current memories, that you're standing on the banks of the Great Thames water at the sort of northern end of Witchwood. As you look across the river, you can just about make out the sort of more nobly inclined district of Queensgate. You can just see the innumerable legions of gloom buggers who light up that district almost like it's day whenever night falls, going around sort of like taking the lanterns down in preparation for the morning. As you're stood there on the edge of the tunnel, your saviour says, looks like we're going to have to swim for it. And then you hear a and he slumps forward, almost like falling into your arms, and you can see the shaft of a single arrow sticking out of his back through the robes. As you sort of look over his shoulder as he tumbles into you, you can see a number of figures, all with wearing strange dark masks with these red pointed hoods and these long flowing scarlet robes. One of them is standing at the front and he's holding a crossbow. As he sort of lowers the crossbow, obviously having just fired it, he says, "You should have known better than to betray the order of the Laughing God. Thus perish all traitors."
So my savior slumped into me.
Yeah.
I wanna try and get the arrow on the sly from his back, because it's like, oof. So
you sort of wheel around as though the weight of him's pulling you down, and you're like, you hear him like go.
And I let him down and like put the arrow sort of in like the robe, and I raise my hands like, I see now, and I freely offer my contrition, and like sort of half bow with my damaged back.
As you're saying that, you feel something touch your foot, and as you look down, you see that the injured person who got you out of the cellar sort of like grabbed hold of your foot. Obviously, you like lowered him down after you'd taken the arrow out and gone like that. You see sort of like under, as he's sort of facing towards you away from them, you see him take out what appears to be it looks like a small clay pot from his jerkin, and he almost like painfully like pulls himself up your body. There's another crossbow bolt hits him as this guy reloads his crossbow and fires it. Your saviour sort of jerks as he's just got up to your shoulder as another crossbow bolt hits him in the back. You can see he's like gripping tightly onto this clay pot with one hand, his knuckles standing out white in the dim of this tunnel. He says, "Reynolds, get to Queensgate. You'll be safe. Go!" And he almost like pushes you backwards a few paces. Then he wheels around. You can see like one of his arms falls uselessly down. You see him. He does something with the clay pot. You can't really see because you're sort of stumbling backwards wherever he's pushed you. He stands up, and in a loud voice he shouts, "I worship his divine shadow," and he throws this clay pot in front of him. The next thing you know, there is this tremendous explosion, and fire bursts out into the tunnel in both directions. You hear the screaming of the men in the tunnel as they're engulfed by the flames, and you think you hear a slight laughter from your saviour as he's likewise engulfed. Standing on the very edge of the blast, you are thrown clear by the shockwave, but obviously it stuns you, and you plunge into the cold water, and everything goes dark. Some time passes, you're not sure how much, but your eyes start to slowly open. It's midday. You're lying on your back on the muddy banks of the Witchwood side of the Great Thames Water, some distance further south than you were previously. As you look down, you can see one of your hands sort of like in the water, and as you watch, the tide gently catches the arrow that's gripped in your hand and slowly washes it away downstream. As your hearing and your vision slowly start to return to you, you hear a voice in the distance going, "Come on, Penny, don't go running off over here. What are we all doing down here anyway?" And you hear a young woman's voice say, "Mick, I think there's someone over there." And you see a young woman and a rather rotund-looking gentleman hurrying in your direction. Him protesting loudly, trying to call back the young girl, and her rushing towards you. As she sees you, and you're conscious, but you're still stunned. As she reaches out and gently touches your forehead, it's as though vitality seems to flow back into your limbs, and you sit bolt upright. And then the scene. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think like there's gonna be like a spray of mud and also like Thames water is like flying everywhere. It's like, and then like
indeed, there's a spray of mud. Wetness hits you in the face, and suddenly as you look around, you're in the building that you've recently purchased, sort of lying on your bedroll, and you look down. Perhaps you were thrashing about or moving about, but you seem to have knocked your water skin onto yourself and knocked the cork out of the top of it, and water has just like soaked your upper body. But you look around, you can see Lieutenant Uffington and Friar Dunstan, who have perhaps been woken up by you screaming or thrashing about in your sleep, and are looking at you with a look of some concern. Obviously, over to the rest of you guys. The Lieutenant, Fry, you've been woken up by the sound of Jackdaw thrashing about, and he's basically knocked the top of his water skin. The water's all poured out and drenched him, and he's suddenly just sat bolt upright, soaked.
What time of the day or morning is it?
It's very early. It's just after sunrise.
So I will kind of get up and walk over towards Jackdaw, kind of take the water skin off him, and then just ask him, is he okay?
I'm probably coughing some water up still. I'm not trying to get it out from my destroyed lungs, and I just sort of like hold on to the friar's cassock or robe or whatever he's wearing, and just like lean into him a bit and say, I think so. I think so. I don't really dream a lot. To be quite frank, I think that might have been the first one in a long while. Don't really remember a lot from before. I think I saw when I died. And I look up at the friar and it's like, that's a really strange thing for a man to see, isn't it?
Very strange indeed.
Because I'm still here, is what I mean.
Indeed.
As you're having this conversation, obviously you're still in Bishopsgate. You start to hear the morning prayers of this very religious district start to filter up into the air. You can hear people starting to go a little bit about their business outside, getting themselves ready for a day in a district where worship is their business, pretty much.
I'll walk over to the window and have a look out, and I imagine we have like a little rough table or something.
Yeah, you've got the basics.
Well, I just glance down and I see the remnants of our cash just lying there in a couple of neat piles. And then over to the other side, there's like couple of packing crates with our gear in it. I'll lean on the windowsill and look out. Oh, it's time we're getting up. Anyway.
As you look out, you can see a young man walking down the street. He's carrying what appears to be a small wooden barrel. He's no more than about 10, 12. As a person goes walking past him, a person who's obviously an acolyte at some sort of temple, judging by their robes, the young lad stops him and he's like, oh, but buy a candle, squire. 1 copper a candle, good white candles, good for worship, sir. The acolyte sort of stops a few moments and then says, yes, I'll take 2, please. And he gives him like 2 copper pennies. The youth takes out a couple of these like roughly made like white candles from his barrel, passes him to him, and he's like, thank you very much, sir. But blessings of God be with you. And he carries on down the street, so going, what's up, going on? It would seem that even in Bishopsgate, the business of commerce goes on.
That might be something we could get into. Candle on sale if you want one. Friar.
I have my own stock. Would you believe?
Yes, I would.
So I will then somewhat subtly ask Jackdaw, how are we going to take the lieutenant's mind off his ordeal? It feels like we should be doing something today of all days.
Well, I have a sorry tale, by which I mean mine, which, given my, well, given what I did last night, in my dreams, I think the lieutenant would probably be distracted by a quest for bloody vengeance and digging up some fairly questionable deeds, and also probably some payback towards his family. I think, as we know, his family is in with somehow in with these, whoever they are, who did this to me, did that to whoever those people were in the sewers, and whatever happened with his brother. And I think I know some of these people fairly intimately from back when I was not this. So I've recently, which is to say just last night, I think I've had a revelation of sorts. I don't precisely know where to start looking, but I think we could take the lieutenant out for a stroll. I might have some excitement in mind.
Okay. So then a little bit less discreet, I'll ask the lieutenant if he wants to come for a walk with us. That we're going out exploring.
Yes, yes. Fresh air helps the mind.
Yes. Bit of distraction.
Well, not exactly a distraction, but a clarity for extra thought. I can consider my next move. Yes, I'll go with you.
Cool. Jackdaw has a place in mind. Let us go.
Lead on, Jack.
So I thought we could take a leisurely stroll from Bishopsgate through Messenwood and Scalehythe, and I think we could all benefit from certain tinctures after all our ordeals, and maybe the lieutenant most of all, perhaps something to soothe the mind. There was a physician of sorts at the bridge, whom I would think would have such tinctures. I would suggest we track down this individual, buy some tinctures, and be on our way. I thought we could visit Queen's Gate afterwards. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Fine. So let us find some peekers on the bridge. They will know where this physician keeps his hovel.
Okay, so you're heading towards Bridgetown, are you?
Yeah, through Messon Ward and Scale High to the very north edge of Bridgetown, just to talk to the guys at the gate.
Yep, no problem. So you start making your way through Messon Ward. As you leave Bishopsgate, the sort of sounds of worship slowly fade away, although you can still hear the old sort of church bell ringing in the distance, and it becomes replaced with the sound of ringing hammers and the sounds of various crafts being purveyed, which is, after all, what Messon Ward is famous for. It's still early morning by the time you make it into the neighbouring district, and you can see people are going around sort of turning the signs on their craft stalls to open and the like. Do you continue to Scale High, heading towards Bridgetown, or?
Yeah. Unless do we want to buy something? Maybe. I don't know what we do.
Well, I haven't had breakfast as yet.
Certainly, let's have breakfast.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So as you're looking around Messon Ward, you see what appears to be a small tavern, a small inn. It's nothing terribly grandiose, called the Fivefold Plough.
How do you fold a plow in 5 ways? Friar, do you know?
I know very little about farming, I'm afraid. So no, I do not. Let us go and ask the innkeep.
I think I may have the answer. Perhaps gain some insight from the sign there. Although it is rather crude. Here they have 5 blades, and as the plough is pulled through the earth, it creates 5 folds of earth.
On what? Are you sure you're a noble?
I learned many subjects in my schooling.
The footmen, farmers all, ready to lay down their lives for their betters. Of course.
As you're saying this, you see the wooden door at the front, and it only looks like a sort of 1-story small building. A rather plump-looking woman comes out. You can see she's carrying what looks to be a couple of blankets with her, and she sort of steps out in the street, and she's going like that, shaking like the dust off the blankets. As she sort of like sees you, like looking up at the sign, and Lieutenant Uppington pointing at the sign, she says, "Oh, hello there, dearie."
Good morning, my lady. Are you
Oh,
serving?
you. She says, well, I don't know about being a lady, but well, we've not started cooking yet, but I've got some bread and cheese and a few leftovers from the previous evening. It's poor fare, but like I say, I haven't even lit the hearth fire at the minute, with it being so early. But well, what we've got, you're welcome to. Yeah, come inside. Shake the morning dew off your cloaks.
Thank you very much. After you, gentlemen.
She gestures for you all to head in.
The friar head in anyway. Fond of bread and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, she puts down a sort of mug of the standard sort of like watered down ale that most people have been drinking recently, especially given that like fears about the laughing plague have meant people tend to be like steering clear of actual water. And she puts what appears to be a loaf of ever so slightly stale bread, but it's still eatable. It's one of those big sort of round loaves. There's like a big chunk obviously already been cut out of it. She puts down a block of like hard cheese with a knife sticking out of it, and there's a small wooden bowl that has some sort of like pickled onions in it that have like, obviously been like soaking in vinegar, probably for longer than it's best to contemplate. And she puts them down on the table. She says, "Well, I've got to carry on getting the rest of the place ready for when we start getting customers in. But you give me a shout if you need anything."
I'll follow her a bit away from the group. Miss, have you yet put the bones from yesterday's chicken or whatever you might have served into the stock for today's soup?
Oh no, not yet. Like I say, I haven't even lit the fire yet.
Yeah. And I fish around. Let me see how much money I have. So I'll pull out a silver piece. I'll like offer it to her. I'd like, let's say, a handful of the chicken bones.
She sort of holds a hand up. She says, "Oh, you don't need to pay me for no but bones." And she says, "We've got plenty. I'll quite happily give you a few of them." She said, "To be honest, you look like you could do with a bowl of soup. You're looking a little bit peaky, a little bit grey around the gills."
Have you soup then?
Well, no, yeah. Like I say, I haven't started making any, but I can certainly give you some bones. You know, if you want to make some of your own later, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I will have some now, and then perhaps if we are still around, I will have a bowl of the soup.
Well, you just go back to your friends. I'll bring them over in a second. And she sort of heads off through a sort of a small doorway at the back, although there's not actually any door in it. You hear like various pots and pans rattling around, and a few moments later, as you're sort of sat back at the table, Jector, she comes walking up, and there's like she's got like a very small bag, looks like an old flour sack with her, and she's like, "Oh, there you go, dearie. You'll get some good soup out of them."
Yeah, thank you.
You look inside it. It looks like chicken bones and maybe the like beef bones. So she obviously just grabbed a handful of bones and like put them into the bag and.
Yeah, I'll fish out like a decent sized chicken bone, and I'll as she moves away and we feast, I'll start picking at it, like whatever's left on it, and then like break it and try to suckle whatever's in, like if there's even any in the random bone that I picked. So I'm basically like gnawing some bones and trying to suck the marrow out.
Okay, yeah.
Wow, you are hungry, Jackdaw.
It's just I haven't really. Eating is strange to me after. Well, you wouldn't know this, but when you die, your appetite kind of goes away, and very few things taste like anything to me anymore. So, this is kind of good. I think I might have enjoyed poultry, before.
Chicken and mushrooms.
As you're having this conversation, the door to the inn opens once again, and you see two fellows walk in. They're obviously peakers from their manner of dress, or they're wearing like the sort of tabard with the livery of the Messon Ward on it. They walk in, and one of them's like, Betty, get us a couple of mugs of your ale, will you, love? She's like, "Oh, starting a bit early today, aren't you, fellas?" And he's like, "Wow, it's only just the one before we go on duty. You won't tell on us, will you, Betty?" And she's like, "Oh no, your secret's safe for me, my love." And she like puts a couple of ales down, and they just start making general chit chat amongst each other. They've obviously only just come on shift, and they're planning on having a swift half before they go on duty. And they're generally chatting, and most of it's fairly inconsequential stuff until you hear one of them say, "Oh yeah, what's been going on in Bishopsgate recently?" He says, what's going on in Bishopsgate?" He says, "Well, didn't you hear?" He says, they've started posting up bounties for things that are dredged from the sewers around there. Apparently there's all manner of like creatures been emerging out of the sewers down there. They've had to station a full patrol of peakers down there to keep an eye on it and like make sure no one gets in. Only got only letting registered guild members in. He's like, what, the Sewer Shifters Guild? Oh yeah, or the Rivermen's Guild. I mean, I don't know if you know, Frank, but they've been pushing, so they want to take over the old sewer operations. Like, well, I bet the Sewer Shifters are fucking loving that, aren't they? He's like, well, yeah, well, they're loving it about as much as you think they're loving it. And they carry on much in that sort of vein, making general chit chat. They don't really seem to be paying you guys any mind. You're just some of the people sat in an inn, and they're just like, they seem to be drinking quite quickly, presumably because they've got to get on the clock. So they're sort of quickly like drinking this down. They call Betty over and have a little bit of bread as they like talk, like dipping it in their beer and eating it. So they're obviously trying to get this dealt with quickly. And after a few moments, he's like, well, not very much, Betty. And he like chucks some like coins on the table. He's like, I'm sure we'll stop in for a quick one after we knock off this evening, but no rest for the wicked. He nods at her, sort of holds his hand up, and the two of them walk out the door.
Okay. So Friar Dunson will visibly relax now that they have left. And continue with his breakfast.
Yeah, it's a fairly meagre repast, as I've said. Like a bit of sort of slightly stale bread, some like hard cheese, a couple of pickled onions that are like ridiculously sharp. They've obviously been sat in this, probably at the bottom of a jar in this vinegar for like weeks, probably. But it does. If nothing else, the bread does at least start to fill you up. Considering you guys have been like living on fairly meagre rations, while you've been exploring the upper Middlegloom and stuff like that, this meagre repast actually seems like quite nice and quite pleasant to you guys. I mean, you're not stuck in a cave. You're not worried what's going to burst out of like pools of water nearby. There's no undead creatures or like lost loves threatening you. You just sat in a pleasant inn, having a bit of bread, having a bit of cheese. You're all like dried off now. You've like got fresh clothes on. You can hear the bells of Bishopsgate ringing in the distance. You can hear the chatter of people outside in carts moving as they're going about their business. It's almost difficult to imagine that the city is stricken with a laughing plague at this moment. It seems like most people are doing their best to put it out of their mind entirely.
Yeah, well, the lieutenant's mood has been quite bright since he woke up for some reason. But this food's just enhanced that. So he's sitting back smiling, although he's shifting a little bit under the weight he's not quite accustomed to with his new breastplate, which is still concealed under his cloak. He's just sitting back, hand on his paunch, just looking around.
Yeah, it's a fairly sort of small inn that you're in. It's like a small area for serving. You can see through, like I said, the doorway at the back. You can see there's what looks like a little kitchen at the back, and you can see the woman Betty sort of poddling around in there, getting the fire lit. You hear her sloshing water about, and a short while later there's like a bubbling sound as she's perhaps set a pot of something over the fire, and you can hear her sort of whistling a little ditty as she's going about her business. Occasionally she sort of sticks her head through and she's like, "Everything all right, gentlemen?"
Excellent, thank you.
Well, you just shout me if you need anything else, otherwise I'm just going to be busy in here. Got to get ready for the day's trade, but you just shout me if you need anything, sir. And she goes back to like rattling around with pots and pans in the back of the room.
Should we be off, gentlemen?
Yeah, we could always pop back for some chicken broth at lunchtime, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly a place that we should frequent again.
Yes, it does give me the idea that as long as we're investing in real estate and putting down some roots and having an operation, I guess, is what Big Mick would call it. A tavern wouldn't be half bad. How do you feel about that? Going forward, I mean, not in the closet that we live in now.
Certainly a good place to collect gossip and information. So Friar Dunson be all over that. Plus, he's fond of an ale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something to think about for the next acquisition.
Yeah. Certainly, if our next endeavour goes well.
Okay,
Speaking
so what's
of-
the plan? Sorry, go ahead.
No, like speaking of the next stop, Bridgetown, the gate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, so you guys start making your way south, obviously passing through Scalehithe. As you start travelling through, you can see that there are numerous sort of fishermen like getting ready to go out for their day's work as you start heading into Scalehithe. As you're moving into the district, the sound of the sort of hammering and the crafting is left behind, and you can smell the pungent aroma of spiced tobacco lingering in the air. You look around, you don't really see any like peakers knocking around or anything like that. There's a dozen or so fishermen sort of just to the south of you, sort of on the bank of the river to the west of Bridgetown, which you can just glimpse in the distance. They appear to be hauling in their nets. They've obviously been sort of working the like early shift. They're sort of pulling the nets out. You can see occasionally the glittering silver and gold of fish caught in their nets as they're heaving them in, and you can just about make out the sort of hubbub of their conversation as they're all talking to each other. You hear a couple of them sort of tutting and bemoaning the fact that their fish catches of late haven't been brilliant, and obviously they're, regardless of their catch, they're taxed on using the river for fishing. So a few of them are complaining quite bitterly about it as they're hauling. As they go, "Oh, am I gonna like make enough to live? Never mind, like on this meagre haul when I've got to pay like half a bit in fucking tax." As they're like hauling their nets in. But none of them appear to be particularly paying you guys any mind as you're sort of walking around. One of them perhaps looks up and he like gives you a bit of an up nod as you're sort of heading past, you know, like a friendly sort of nod of the head, and then it turns back to his net. It looks like it's fairly sort of back-breaking labour as they're hauling in these like big, thick rope nets, and then they're having to like unpick the fish from it, dropping them into barrels of half barrels of water that are next to them, probably hoping to keep them fresh. But no one really pays you guys particular mind. And eventually you see the northern gate of Bridgegate looming up ahead of you. There's a couple of peakers sort of lounging around, like stood on their, sort of leaning on their spears or leaning against the wall as you approach. As we've said previously, the guards on the sort of northern gate of Bridgegate seem a little bit more slovenly than the ones on the south gate, since presumably if you've come either from the inner wards, you've already been like cleared of like you're free of the plague because somehow you've got across the river, so you've already been through Bridgegate. So as you're approaching, one of them just sort of like holds up a hand and he says, "Sorry, got to stop you there, gentlemen. Just got to give you a quick once over. You know, make sure you're not infected."
Sir, we're not crossing.
Oh wow, he says, "Well, that's fine, and sir," he says, "Sorry to have bothered you, but if you do need to go through the gate, you're going to have to get checked. Rules is rules."
Yes. Of course, we need to be certain that the plague isn't spreading. However, a quick word, and I motion like towards like a few steps away.
He takes a couple of steps towards you, and he's like, "Yeah, if you like." He said, "Everything's quiet at the minute." He looks over. He's like, "Jeremy, you going to be all right while I talk to this peaker-looking fellow here?" He's like,
Yeah, this incredibly shady guy.
he's like, yeah, don't you worry about it, Wolf. He says, "Yeah, I can keep an eye on the gate. You have your little chat, whatever you got to do." And the guy identified as Wolf walks over towards you, and he's like, "What can I do for you?"
I know from personal experience that you have a physic or a man learned in the medicinal arts who comes around when you need to make sure that if someone has boils that they are actually from visiting the whorehouses and not the plague.
Yeah, right. Your eye says, he says, "Yeah, you mean old Mr. Gray?" He says, "Yeah, well, you won't find him around there now. That's why we have to send a messenger to get him. Well, no, he's in Queen's Gate's where he holds up."
Do you have a which house would that be?
He says, well, if you head towards the centre of the district, he says, you take your first left once you've got into the Queen's Gate Square, continue down there, take the next right, you'll find like an old stump of an old tree there, and keep going past that. So then take the first left past that. He says you can't miss it. It's a big old building. Used to be like an orphanage or some such back in the day. So I hears it, but it's a big old building. You can't miss it. That's where he's got his place. Although he must be doing pretty well out of the old herbal poultices if he can afford a building that big in the inner wards, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, what one presumes it's not just the poultices.
Well, I'd assume no. Says at least way I don't know any other apothecary that's got a building that big.
Good. So thank you very much, and I extend my hand to shake his.
He shakes your hand. He's like, oh no problems. That's what we're here
as
for. Keep the streets safe.
As I retract my hand, there's a silver coin in his palm.
He's like, oh, thank you very much, sir. And he disappears into his jerkin.
Yeah, something to maybe put towards the future for when I next need to talk to you.
He says, well, let me just say, unofficially speaking, sir, that your contribution to Her Majesty's Peakers is gratefully received.
Very good. Good man. Keep on the lookout. We can't afford the plague up here.
Well, no, I should say not, sir. I should say not.
Okay, you have a good day now.
And you, sir, and you. Take care.
Yep, and I I get back to the friar and the lieutenant, and I tell them the directions to this. Doctor, whom we'll be visiting to obtain tinctures for the doldrums of the mind that we are currently experiencing as far as the lieutenant is concerned, and for the future as well, because we're going to be doing some horrid shit later. So that's what Jackdaw thinks. So
yeah, tinctures.
Yeah. So I lay down the plan. Like we're going to what's it called, Queen's Gate, and we're going to this particular address to see Mr. Gray, who is learned in the arts of the body and mind, as I understand.
Good.
Okay, so are you making your way directly to Queen's Gate?
If you guys want to stop somewhere else, we can go.
No, I don't think so. Just go straight to Queen's Gate.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so you begin making your way through it's getting a little bit later now. More people are starting to be about, the sort of bustling crowds of Scale Hive. As you start making your way into Queen's Gate, you notice that the general sort of look of the place, and also you're in the inner wards, so everything's like a lot more well kept than it is in the grottier outer wards of the city. But as you head into Queen's Gate, it looks particularly well kept, and you start seeing small like oases of greenery as the sort of like trees and plants that are dotted amidst the quite sort of well maintained and like whitewashed and painted buildings. It seems like every building here is a mixture of stone and timber construction, and they're all painted in sort of browns and whites and sort of fresh coats of paint on the buildings that almost causes them to gleam in the early morning sun. However, hand in hand with that, as you start heading into Queen's Gate, you start noting as you're walking down the various streets that there certainly seems to be a heavier Pika presence here. It seems like every other street you go down has at least a couple of Pikas stood on it, sort of like looking around, and they look a good deal more efficient than some of the ones you've seen in other districts. You know, they're sort of like, they almost look well drilled, as you would put it, Lieutenant. You know, they're sort of like patrolling rather than just sort of lingering around idly on street corners. All of them wearing sort of smartly pressed and gleaming livery, which appears to have a sort of decorated like crown motif on it. Obviously, anyone who's grown up in Great London, you would know that this is the closest ward to the actual estate of Queen Elspeth herself. So basically anyone who's got a lot of money tries to get themselves a residence in this district because it means they're nearer to the Queen. And basically, the nearer to the Queen you get, the higher your standing, the more opulence and wealth you obviously have on display. And you can see this as you look around at the people walking around. Most of them are obviously of a higher social class. They have servants walking around with them. They're wearing fabrics in some sort of quite odd to you guys colours, like burgundies, yellows, colours that aren't often seen on the lower classes. You're used to like the drab browns and greens and greys, whereas this is almost like a garish riot of colours, as though each person you see is trying to outdo the splendour of the clothing of the person you've seen before. Even the air seems to smell a little different here as you sort of walk in there. You get the sense of fresh paint and whitewash coming from the buildings, and there's the fresh green scent of the plants and these sort of like odd trees that are dotted here and there as you're walking around.
So, not to brag or anything, but I think one of these places might have been mine from before.
Might be useful if we could find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only I could remember. I maybe we'll find out one day.
Yes.
But I think this is definitely, and I don't like, as we like walk past some people, like I don't talk about this then, but like when we're at a quieter patch of like a garden, so like I think this is definitely the well, if it's not the head of the beast, this is definitely the belly of the beast. The lieutenant would, I'm sure, agree. With all that we know, this is where a lot of the festering happens.
Yeah. It's brought something to my attention, but perhaps I hope we don't actually meet my father. If he's managed to acquire a place around here, I'll be looking around. My mood deepens and darkens a little.
Mm-hmm. And as we stroll, I do navigate according to the guards'
Of course.
instructions and try to make our way to the old orphanage.
Indeed. Now, as you're sort of walking around, obviously, Lieutenant, you're looking around, trying to make sure you don't turn around a corner and bump into your father or anything ghastly like that. You don't see your father. However, as you're glancing around, you do see a young woman who you recognise. You see your younger sister, Rosalind Uffington. She's stood in front of what appears to be a small stall selling exotic plants. She has a number of servants with her, 4 in all. She appears to be sort of like looking over the plants. Doesn't appear to have spotted you yet. The servant, she's going, yes, well we'll take 2 of those for the main estate, and what do you think of those? What do you think of those strange trees with the spiky looking? What did you say they were called? Family says, well, they're called. We call them puzzle trees. Maybe so. They're imported from the east at a great expense. I'm afraid they are quite expensive. Oh, no, that's fine. That's not a problem. Yes, I think one of those would look. Maybe 3 of those. I think they'd look splendid just on either side of the driveway leading up to the onto the estate. It'd be nice for people to see as their carriages go through. Yes. I tell you what. We'll take 4 of them. She looks at me. She turns to him and says, "You sure you'll be able to carry 4 of those?" And one of the servants says, "Oh yeah, yes, ma'am. We should be able to carry 1 apiece. So they're not so big. How big do they get?" He says to the store owner. He says, "Well, they do grow quite big, but it takes them a long time to get big. If you plant them now, within about 10 years, they'll be twice the height of a man. You mark me if they're not." Oh, that's splendid. Yes, we'll take 4 of those, and like the servants slowly start picking up these like big like potted plants, basically. I say they're so engrossed in that, and you guys are sort of heading. They're on one side of the road. You guys are heading down the other side of the road, about to turn off. They don't appear to have spotted you.
Okay, that's good. I'm pulling the collar up just in case.
Okay.
I was going to duck into a doorway, but if we're on the other side of the street, that's fine.
Okay, make me a dexterity roll, please, Lieutenant.
It's fairly obvious to the others, I would imagine, that I'm avoiding this person. Where is my character going? It's hiding. Nice. Dexterity. Wherefore art thou? I like the way you've followed on with the R theme.
Oh damn!
Okay. So literally, you the way it goes is you guys are like, oh, we're just going to turn down that street there. You see the lieutenant probably looking a little bit pale and a little bit worried as he spots this young woman. You turn round to like, ask the lieutenant like what's going on, and he's not there. Then you hear like the psst from like a little alleyway nearby that he's obviously like ducked into to avoid this woman, and you can see sort of stood in the shadows with like his coat pulled up is the lieutenant. You see the young woman appears to have like looked around sort of like in the direction of you guys, but she obviously she's like looking around sort of carrying these plants, and she starts heading off with the servants. But thanks to the lieutenant's quick thinking, she obviously didn't see him. She went, oh, there's 2 guys over there. She's no reason to know the rest of you guys from Adam. So she starts heading off down the street with the servants in tow carrying these pot plants.
Close. That's my sister.
Your sister?
Yeah.
So given that she's not in a cellar dying and also half a goat, is she... Do you think she's involved in any way?
What do I remember about her? I'd probably say not.
Now, just to clarify this juncture, I will say, obviously, you're obviously aware that this is your half sister. In fact, it's the daughter of Boris Uppington by his second wife. What's your relationship like with your half sister? How do you get on with her? Not at all. How does Richard feel about her?
I think I've seen her a few times while I've been back on leave. We sort of get on all right. I got on more with Rupert than her, her real brother. But I got the impression she was haughty but fair with it. If she is involved, it's not who I remember her being like. No.
Indeed, and having heard her speak,
She was a nice girl.
Yeah, and having heard the sort of like the fairly kind way she spoke to her servants, sort of asking their opinion rather than just telling them what to think. It seems almost inconceivable to you that she could be involved in something like this plot you suspect your father of being involved in. But as you sort of like you step out of the alleyway, secure that she's gone, you can just sort of see her in the distance, sort of heading further away with her servants. There's literally like no chance she's going to spot you now. She's far in the distance. And in fact, as you watch, you can see her climbing into a carriage which like rattles off down one of the cobbled streets and is soon lost from sight.
I sort of look sheepishly at the other 2. Embarrassed laugh.
Well, yeah. At least it's valuable information for us to know that your entire family isn't caught up in this, I think.
Yeah, at least there'll be some good ones left when the dust settles and the blood has congealed.
Indeed.
It also speaks of the strength of whoever is behind this, whether it's your father or someone, I suppose, above him. They're not all powerful. They have not subsumed your entire family.
And indeed, she may help us
Yes, from the
when the
inside.
time comes.
Okay, so obviously you guys are presumably continuing to follow the directions you're given as you're having this conversation. And before long, you see what appears to be a large building rising up in front of you. It's a fairly large, sort of like 3-story building. It looks somewhat run down, although it has been reasonably well maintained. There's like a sort of small area of grassland around the building, and there are what appear to be some low-lying shrubs, bushes. You can smell the fresh fragrance of herbs and spices as you're walking towards the building. You can see there are a number of blue, black and grey sort of small birds that are alighting on the various bushes, eating berries, etc. And also, as you're approaching, you can see what appear to be numerous of the small animals and insects that are moving about. There's a few people moving around in the grounds. They're wearing fairly sort of typical clothing, like leather jerkins, breeches, stuff like that, although they are quite well maintained. The clothing is of a kind that you would expect to see in this sort of well-to-do district. The people you can see all appear to be wearing these these small satchels attached to the front, sort of sitting on their stomachs, and as you watch you can see them walking around. They all appear to have effectively like pairs of small pinking shears, and they're like cutting herbs and things off these bushes and dropping them into the satchels they're wearing around their waist.
I think this is the place.
Yes.
So I was told that this is owned by Mr. Gray, who is the aforementioned, I suppose, apothecary or maybe herbalist. Given that he has servants working in this fairly large house, and he's called an apothecary and not Lord Grey, I think there's probably something here that we should probably be on the lookout for. This doesn't happen, I don't think, in Queensgate.
Okay. So what I would like to do now is on the QT, I would like to cast Detect Evil, which should last for 40 minutes.
Okay, that is fine. You cast Detect Evil. You're not immediately assailed by any sort of sense of foreboding or anything along those lines. There's a certain sort of background level of sort of like casual evil that's like not just from Jackdaw, but it's like omnipresent in like Great London, because there's always someone out to like do something at least slightly nefarious, although it is a little bit lessened in this area. But obviously you've learned to sort of like filter that out and go, well, that's just the background like evilness of Great London, but there's nothing like above that immediately assails you.
Okay.
Obviously,
well, that's a good start.
I'll let you know if you come across anything more evil.
Yeah, but whenever I walk in front of the friar, it's like, ugh!
Okay. So let us go and find Mr. Gray in the next 40 minutes if we can at all.
There's oddly specific, friar, I must say. Yeah, all right. We headed through the gardens, looking for, I suppose, a butler at this stage because he has a staff.
Okay, you wander through the gardens. You don't see anyone who obviously like sticks out as a butler.
I'll go up to someone who's tending and say, "Excuse me, I was told that this is Mr. Gray's residence."
One of the people who's collecting the cuttings, as you clear your throat, turns around and he says, "Oh, that's right. Surgeon Gray's in the main building." He'll no doubt be looking after his birds or his plants at this time of day. Make sure they're all fed and the like.
Of course, the birds. Thank you, and I'll tap him on the shoulder.
He looks at you to see if you don't mind me asking, sir. What ailment is it that you're suffering from?
Cold.
Oh well, there's a nice warm fire in the apothecary. You should get yourself warmed up. I mean, the amount of people who have started off with a little chill and then found themselves in serious trouble is quite astounding. I'd advise you to wrap up a little bit warmer, sir, especially with the weather being as it is at the minute. I mean, considering that snowfall we had a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Although it seems to be lightening off a bit now. He says he looks around. At least we've not had any fresh snow for a couple of days.
Yeah, you're probably right. I will go do that presently.
Okay, and at this point, as the sort of like the fresh snow is mentioned, I'm going to ask one of you to roll so I can work out what's actually going on with the weather. As soon as I can find what I've done with the weather table, because I've saved it in here somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay, so can I ask? Let's see, Jackdaw, since you asked about it, can you please roll me a d8?
8.
Okay.
Snowstorm.
Okay, well, obviously we're still in that sort of autumn / winter period. So the weather for the last few days has been your fairly sort of standard, sort of like slight amounts of rain, a little bit on the cool side. But as you're like having this conversation and saying, "Oh, at least we've not got any new snow," a light at first and then a slightly heavier rain starts to fall, and the gardener you're talking to says, "Oh, looks like I spoke too soon." Sort of holds his hand up to like stop some of the rain falling. Going inside.
Yeah, I look up at the sky with like the rain just pouring down my face, or like starting to anyway. I was like, yeah, appears so. Better get inside then.
Yes, you want to keep yourself out of the cold. You know.
Yes. Yeah, I'll start wandering away towards the, I suppose, main doors.
Okay, no problems.
Yeah. Wander on behind.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, no problems. You head up to the main doors. There's no attempt to block you entering the building. The main door opens out into what appears to be a large hall. You can see there's a fire sort of burning away in the hearth. There's a few more of these attendants, these servants lingering about.
I'll motion for the friar and the lieutenant to like huddle down, and I'll lean into them and say, whisper, "So, I'm not exactly sure because my mind is ravaged, but I may know this person, this Mr. Gray. I might not know him, but either way, he knows me. For that is for certain. I'm not certain who I am. I have my suspicions in the library. Well, the library said I was the heir, which that might be. I'm not sure what that means to Mr. Gray. He might be a friendly, or I might have to disembowel him. And I just tell you this in advance so you won't be surprised and might be able to tackle his attendants if they decide to get feisty."
Very well. Thank you for
Something certainly looks amiss, so we will.
But just to state that I'm not looking for disembowelment. I'm actually looking for the tinctures for myself and you, Lieutenant. And I suppose Friar, if you want to explore the celestial spheres, I'm sure there's something here for you too.
No, thank you, my son.
Just the ale then.
Just the ale, yes, indeed.
Very good, very good. Now let's keep our eyes on the prize. Yeah, and I'll turn to survey the estate.
Okay, so you look around. It looks like it was once, like I say, a large orphanage, and you're in like the main entrance hall. You can see what appear to be a couple of staircases on either side of it, which presumably head up to the upper floors. This area appears to be made out as rather like a sort of a waiting room. There's comfortable chairs dotted around, some tables. There's a few books dotted around. Most of them, if you have a quick glance at them, simply about horticulture or various botanicals.
Are they like academic texts, like super advanced?
They don't appear to be. They don't appear to be super advanced. They're more sort of like table books. You know, like you see like a guide to recognizing the herbs of the field, a guide as to what berries you can eat when you're in the wild and which ones are poisonous, stuff like that.
I'll get the berry book and like flip through it as we stroll around, and I will forget it under my arm and maybe borrow it later, but I'll carry it around.
Okay, that's fine. You took it in your arm. You start carrying it around. After a short while, you hear voices sort of up on the sort of like the balcony that the two stairs lead to. One of the voices you would recognise, Jackdaw, as belonging to the physician who spoke to you on the bridge, that you assume to be Mr. Grey. The other one you would certainly all recognise because it is the voice of Aldred Mallowburn, the witch hunter. You hear...
Yeah, I think you just hear like shit from Jackdaw's hood.
You hear Grey say, "Now, witch hunter Mallowburn, I've stitched up your wounds, and the poultice should see to their rapid healing. But I would really advise you to seek bed rest for the next couple of days." And you hear the slightly gritty voice of Aldred Mallowburn respond and say, "I thank you for your attention, Surgeon Grey. However, only wickedness does not sleep, and therefore neither does the witch hammer. But I thank you for your kindness and for seeing to my wounds. Not at all, witch hammer. As always, I am happy to serve those who see to the protection of our dear city. Now, if I cannot convince you to rest for a couple of days and let your injuries heal, no, I'm afraid you cannot, good physician. Then at least let us have a small tot of brandy to fortify you against this inclement weather outside. It's the least I can do given your wound. You've done more than enough, good surgeon. But I thank you for your hospitality, and it would be churlish of me to not accept it before I head out into the morning." And you see the two of them start walking down the staircase towards the sort of entrance waiting room that you guys are all sat in. Now, to Friar Dunstan, and only Friar Dunstan, as the two of them are walking down the staircase, because you guys have seen them first, they've not spotted you because they're not chatting to each other, they're not looking around. To Friar Dunstan's eyes only, as Aldred Mallowburn walks down the stairs, you can see that his entire body is wreathed in golden and amber flames.
Okay. Didn't see that one coming at all. Okay, so I guess having had a unpleasant experience with him already, plus this new piece of information, what I will be trying to do is make sure that he doesn't see us and that we're kind of not facing him and kind of looking at the books on the shelves and generally just waiting for him to leave.
So are you doing the sort of stereotypical, like, raising the books up in front of your face and you're waiting for him to pass? Like?
A little bit subtler than that, kind of, because I guess we don't need to watch him now I have all the information we need. So it's more like we're going to turn away and put our back to him and kind of look at books that way. So
Okay. A few moments later, Fry, you feel a hand tapping you on the shoulder.
So I will turn around and see who
you
it
turn
is.
around, you see Witch Hunter Malaburn with this Thomas Gray stood behind him. He looks at you. You think maybe for a moment you see like a vague hint of like a smirk on Malaburn's face as he looks at you and he says, "It's been a long time, Friar."
Doesn't seem like it's been that long, Witch Hunter.
He nods and then he says, "Master Gray, would you be kind enough to fetch the brandy that we were discussing earlier? I have official words for these gentlemen that I'm sure you'll understand. It's a private matter." "Oh yes, of course, Witch Hunter. I entirely understand that. I'll go and fetch the bottle of brandy. I'll be back momentarily." And he wanders off. At which point Malaburn turns back to you and he lowers his voice slightly and he says, "Tell me, Friar, how long have you had it for?"
How long have I had what for?
He looks at you curiously as though he's trying to size up basically like whether you're taking the piss or not. And then he says, "The sword, damn it! How long have you had it for?"
I don't know. Number of weeks. How long have I had it? 2 weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just say 2 weeks.
He looks at you and he says, "Well then, perhaps I was wrong in my initial assumptions about you. The sword of Gale does not choose to be wielded lightly, but I should tell you now that it will not always be with you."
Oh. And who do you think it will be with next?
"I have no way of knowing. However, if you see someone who has wielded the sword of Gale before, you will know. You will see the flames of Gale around their form, as I see them around yours now."
Ah. Have you wielded the sword yourself?
"Once, in my younger days." "But I will not keep you any longer." He turns around and he says, "Please, when Master Gray returns, convey my apologies to him." And he turns around with a swish of his cloak, sort of clicks his heels together, sort of tips his broad-rimmed hat to you all, and he starts walking towards the exit.
Okay. So I'll say good day, Witch Hunter, until we meet again.
He nods and continues walking towards the door. A few short moments later, he's lost from sight.
As he's walking away, I will be looking to the friar and like raising a knife and looking meaningfully at the back, the receding back of the witch hunter.
And I will just shake my head very subtly and just say no, not today.
Put the knife away.
As you just took the knife away, when Surgeon Grey reappears, he's carrying a small wooden tray which has some glasses on it and a bottle of brandy, and he says, "Oh, has Witch Hunter Malaburn left?"
Yeah, he was called away on Witch Hunter business. So he had to leave, and he asked us to convey his apologies.
"Oh, well, that's a shame. Still, well, you know what it's like. Some people just won't do what's good for them. Unfortunately, and it doesn't matter what I or any other chirurgeon would say to them. But well, it seems a shame to waste this good brandy. Now I've got it out. Why don't we all have a seat, and you can tell me why you've come to my apothecary?" And he gestures like basically like the leather sort of drawing room chairs around a round table. He puts the tray down with the brandy, sits down in one of these older armchairs, and he like pours out a little tot of brandy in each of the glasses.
So the friar will certainly sit down and start sipping on his brandy.
Yeah. I'll join him.
Yeah. If I am poured any portion, I will down it in one go immediately.
The
Classy.
the surgeon smiles and he like pours another tot into your glass for you, and he says, "Now, what is it that brings you to my humble home?"
Sorry, John, just to clarify, this is the same guy we met on the bridge that one day.
Indeed.
We have come at my urging. You have a fairly good grounds. You have gardens. Do you perhaps also have tinctures to soothe the mind of a man faced with certain hardships and the weight placed upon the soul as a result?
Well, I'm not really qualified to speak about the nature of the soul. That would be more your companion's line. And he sort of gestures with a smile towards the friar and says, "There are certain herbs and compounds, though, that can be used to soothe a troubled mind, to place one in a relaxed state. We oftentimes use them when someone has faced a severe physical trauma, so that they will relax and allow us to do their work without placing themselves in further danger."
One would like to purchase some measures of this medicine.
He says, "Well, yes, I'm sure I can arrange that for you. After all, we do have extensive grounds, most of which I have been fortunate that in my time I have treated a number of well-to-do nobles and their families. I've even treated the royal line on occasion, and I've been lucky that my patrons have seen fit to provide me with the means to uphold this place and my staff here. I unfortunately I cannot be everywhere, but and I believe it's my responsibility to train others who seek to enter the craft, to make sure they're not more of a danger to those they wish to save. But I'm sure something that can be worked out for you. But to be honest, I'm a little surprised to see you again so soon. He says to you, Jackdaw.
Yes, well, I suppose fate takes us all to surprising times and situations.
Well, yes. Again, I'm not really qualified to speak about fate and such like. I tend to prefer keeping my feet on the ground and dealing with things that can be dealt with by the application of science. But as you say, coincidence is a strange mistress. But I wasn't expecting to see you again within a couple of days.
Yes, alas, our need is dire, and really, we would like to purchase this medicine, if at all possible.
Yes, yes.
And I say that with the full understanding that I'm just avoiding his his line of inquiry just entirely.
He says, "Yes, of course." And he looks around. He sees one of the staff, and he leans over and says, "Would you be good enough? Would you be able to fetch my pipe for me, please?" And a pipe's brought to him, and he says, "Would either of you gentlemen care for a pipe yourselves? I can arrange for one."
No, thank you. But I'll have another sup of brandy.
Oh yeah, of course. He leans over and he pours another tot of brandy. Yeah. And your two companions. He looks at you, Lieutenant.
A pipe would be most agreeable. Thank you very much.
Please, a pipe for the gentleman, and you, my friend.
No, thank you. But I would perhaps, as we discussed the commercial aspects of our visit here, perhaps to step aside so as not to you understand.
Of course, of course. While they're having this little conversation, a pipe's brought to yourself, Lieutenant, and there's a little sort of like almost like a snuff box next to it, like a few little plugs of tobacco in it.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
Not at all. Good for the lungs, he says. And he lights his own pipe with like a little sort of a flint and tinder. He says, so perhaps you could tell me more about the symptoms you're experiencing.
Are there any staff around at this time?
Not in the immediate vicinity of your table, but they are dotted around, but like no one's within earshot.
Yeah. Well, it starts. You see, there are two very distinct cases. One will both involve family tragedy. The first one could be remedied with time and effort to some degree, for which one desires the medicine to get one through the hurdles to see the light of day at the end of the endeavor. The other trouble starts with a death and what comes after, and that is a more special tincture, I think, that is required for that one. And I fish out the feather, and I put it on the table, and I pour myself another of brandy, and I take it, and I look at Mr. Gray and I say, "You obviously know who I am. I think I know who I am. So, Mr. Gray, at this moment, stand and deliver or die when I say, who are you?"
He says, "Well, there's no need for threats, Reynold. I'm Sir Thomas Gray. I'm the apothecarian to, amongst others, the royal line and several influential noble families. As I say, I've been lucky enough that my patrons have seen fit to bless me with the sufficient resources to run this place. Although most of my staff at the moment are bent to finding a herbal remedy to cure the symptoms and perhaps even eventually the plague itself. I don't know what more I can tell you."
Why would you give me a feather of black?
He looks around a little uncomfortable. You see like maybe like a little bead of sweat break out on his forehead, and he's like, perhaps we should go and discuss this matter in my private chambers. Where we're less likely to be overheard."
I would agree. Perhaps my companions can bring the bottle and entertain themselves while we suss over old bloody matters.
Okay, so you're all led up the stairs to what appears to be a study. There's bookshelves on the wall. There's a small round table. There's what looks to be almost like a long gurney with a blanket on it. You can actually see like a few little tiny speckles of blood on it as you walk in. Sir Thomas Gray says, "Please forgive that I haven't had a chance to change it since the witch hunter was in here. Please sit down." As you all sit down, he shuts the doors and like bolts the double doors that lead into the room. Then he sits down, sort of still puffing on his pipe, and he says, "Well, I'll certainly tell you what I can, but tell me first, Reynold. Did you ever manage to find that man you were looking for?"
Sir Thomas, I don't know. There's a great deal I don't know.
Well, look, I know you've only really had a day to look for him, but
you're going to have to help me here, Thomas. As you see, I'm unwell. I
Well,
motion at myself.
well, clearly, he says. Well, look, he says. When you visited me yesterday, you told me you were looking for a fellow who bore a striking resemblance to yourself.
Ah, that man.
And well,
Ah,
I unfortunately wasn't able to help. And you said you were going to carry on looking for him. Thanked me, although for what I'm not really sure, and then left. And that's why I said I'm surprised to see you again so soon.
yes, of course. That piece of silly business. Um, to be quite frank, this isn't the first brandy in. Um, well, in a little bit, we have had some friar here enjoys things spiritual inside and out of the bottle, and
Well, there's no crime in a man enjoying a fine brandy.
no, certainly.
It's good. It's fortifying.
Praise Gale, you have no opposition here.
Well, indeed.
Um, however, the fire does take a man down some paths that cause him to forget. What did I discuss the last time I was here? I'm afraid there has been a bender since.
He says, when you came here yesterday, you said you'd been looking for a fellow who was the very image of yourself. You said you were having some trouble with your memories,
Mm-hmm.
and you believed that was somehow connected with this other fellow.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously revealed that I know who you are
Mm-hmm.
and what you are,
Mm-hmm.
and not to be too indiscreet, but unfortunately I wasn't able to tell you anything about this other person, so then you went about your way. That's about the long and short of it.
That is very unfortunate. Did I say where I was going? I think I may have misplaced my coin pouch.
No, well, not to me anyway.
Mm.
I mean, I bid you good luck in your search, but
Ah, alas, the
so,
dangers of drink.
but as I told you yesterday, I would advise you to keep to keep a low profile, given well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if the Queen were to find out,
Let us hope not.
well, she won't find out about it from me.
Mm. Very
Uh,
good. Sir Thomas, as always, I do appreciate your devotion.
Well, not at all, not at all. I was always always a strong supporter of the old the old king, and I think that the way in which and again he looks around the way in which our current monarch came into power was extremely suspect.
Yes, matters of succession are, well,
Plus, there were all those odd rumours around about the time of the succession. The sort of dark rumours concerning King Oculon, God rest his soul, and his line, dabbling with evil forces and the like. I never even heard anything of the like until, then all those rumours strangely started to be heard on the streets, and well, the next thing you know, well, we find ourselves in the situation we're in now. Well, extremely suspect, if you ask me.
very much so. It is good to have you around, Thomas, and thank you for refreshing my memory. I apologize.
Not at all, not at all. And I must say, I think concealing your accent's a very wise choice. Throw people off the scent and such like.
I nod at him and I go, "Oui."
Yes, I'd keep that a little under wraps if I was you.
Very good, Thomas. Very good. I do apologize about the rudeness
Not,
for.
not at all. Not at all. I mean, from what I know of what's happened to you, I think it's practically a miracle you're sat here and able to converse. I'll be quite frank.
Yes, the friar is taking his sweet time declaring me a miracle and a living saint, but one lives in hope. And I looked at the friar with a smile.
And I'll just raise my glass back to you as I'm sipping on my brandy. And then I will ask, did Reynolds look as ill yesterday as he does today?
He sort of leans in a bit closer and looks over Jackdaw and then says, "No, he does look a little like he suffered a little bit in the intervening time. He wasn't quite so grey of complexion when I last saw him, and although he did have a look of someone who'd not slept for a considerable period of time. Hardly surprising given all that he's been through."
Indeed, a terrible ordeal. And tell me, in addition to yourself, are there others that we can trust? There is a sense that Renault was betrayed previously, so he's unsure which of his former comrades to trust, and I'm wondering if you can help us.
Sir Thomas says, "Well, of course there are those of us who are loyal to the rightful rulers of Great London, and not this current usurper who sits on the throne. Well, we've been until I saw this young fellow," and he gestures at Jackdaw, "on the bridge. We quite believe that all the heirs of Oculon had been wiped out by the Queen's spies, but no, there's definitely no mistaking the Oculon nose and profile."
Okay. Okay.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Medicine.
Yes, of course. It'll take me a couple of hours to prepare the necessary ingredients. How much of it are you after?
I take my time looking at the lieutenant, not really like disguising my like appraisal, because he's a fairly stocky guy, at least like way like actually healthier than me.
Yeah.
So let's say enough to last a healthy large man for a month.
Let's see. So 2 glasses a day. So let's see. You'll be talking 1 dose a day. So that'll be 7 days. So I believe I can prepare the necessary doses of that. Obviously, like I said, it'll take me probably about 3 hours to prepare it in the quantities that you need, and it'll cost you. Let's see. So 7, 14, 28, and 6. It'll cost you about £45.
I'll lean into the friar. How is our coffers?
2 weeks worth would be better for now.
Let's make it 2 weeks.
Of course. That's fine. So you'll be looking at about £14 for that.
Very good. And also, I'm going to lean into him, and I will I will whisper in his ear certain botanical terms for certain plants, which, when prepared appropriately, cause one to leave this earth behind, which is to say, certain poisonous plants. And I say that. Well, I don't speak Latin, so I will use the what's it called, the Gaulish names for them. And so, do you have these plants,
He says, "Oh well,
Thomas?
I don't have them to hand. I could probably reach out to some of my contacts and acquire them, but that would take me a good while longer than the simple herbal preparation
Yes,
you've
and
already
it is
asked
not
for."
a matter for today. I might have need of these, perhaps sometime in the future. If you reach out to whoever provides you with these, and you get a supply, you will be amply compensated.
Of course, I'll reach out to some people I know who specialise in that area. I'm sure the rest of the rest of the order will be delighted that you're starting to move into your heritage. And obviously, if there was anything we can do to help with that, of course, please just ask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good, Thomas. Um, for now, let us be about our business. And I lean back and say, so we have some hours while Sir Thomas here prepares our medicines, and uh, shall we stay here, or do you wish to go somewhere, Lieutenant Fire?
Let us stay here and enjoy this brandy.
And I think that's a good time to call for a
And a pipe.
biological break, as the lieutenant's chuffing on his
Yeah.
pipe and you're all enjoying brandy. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone feel free to nip to the loo, grab a drink, etc. And we'll come back in a few minutes.
Yep.
Perfect.
So how are you finding the session so far, Rob?
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah, it's. I was a little bit confused there for a minute, but um, but I think it's good. It's going well. It's kind of drip feeding the information, which I think is very kind of CSI based. The whole theme we were going for from the beginning. So now I think it's going really well. Really enjoying it.
Oh, good, glad to hear it.
I do want to kill me a few peakers though, to be fair. But no, sorry, I think it's going really well.
Okay, so as we were saying, you guys have got a few hours to while away while Sir Thomas is preparing the herbs. I'm assuming that you've crossed off the money from your group funds. So you've got a short few hours to kill while he's knocking those herbal concoctions together. So what are you guys planning to do?
I think the friar is planning to speak to Jackdaw and make sure that he wasn't actually in two places at one time. Sorry. So I'm guessing that you weren't here yesterday, while also being down in the Middergloom with us. So it would seem like somebody who looks like you is looking for you.
I wouldn't know what that was about, but I won't say I've never been here before, because that might not be true. But I wasn't here 2 days ago because we were, I think, somewhere underground, probably. So that is very interesting. I've been puzzling over how to set a trap for this other me, to figure out what that's about.
That certainly seems like an idea. And what do you know of this order that he spoke of?
Not a fucking thing. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Honestly, well, I guess since he's a sir and he thinks I'm Reynold, maybe that's true then, what the library told us. But I don't think that's necessarily, that's just that's a whole lot of questions that I don't necessarily know how to begin to unravel. He's talking about an order. I don't know what that is. We know that there is an order doing something here. That's probably not the same one, given that they tossed me in the river and he isn't doing that. So there's a second order in play. Yeah.
Because it also sounded like he didn't know you before he met you on the bridge. Which
could
is
be
interesting.
Could be.
So then he only knows of you. And how does he know your name if he only knows of you? That is unexpected.
And the thing is, I lack several pieces of this puzzle to even begin to figure out what this means, what Thomas means for us, for me anyway, or to Reynold, if that's me.
So John, I'm assuming that Thomas didn't detect as evil or in any way sketchy.
Nope.
Okay. So he seems like a good man. Too good to potentially threaten. But I wonder how we can get more information out of him without revealing everything. Hmm.
Well, he does like brandy.
He does. Perhaps when he returns and you take your medicine, I will spend a few moments with him alone.
Mhm.
And proclaiming my lack of knowledge, I can ask a number of questions and
Mhm.
see if we can find out more about this order.
That sounds like a good plan.
Because that won't give up that you don't remember anything,
Mhm.
only that you haven't told me everything.
Yeah. Yes, yes. So me and the lieutenant will busy ourselves with the medicine, and you interrogate the good sir.
Speaking of the lieutenant, what does Lieutenant Huffington make of all this that's going on?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I would like to have a word with him when he gets back as well. I have a feeling there's obviously an order like you've been mentioning, and I was wanting to know uh, at what stage they're at, if they are at all planning on a rebellion,
Okay, splendid.
and that, if possible, I'd like to get in on it.
Okay, excellent. So, a couple of hours later, Sir Thomas returns and he's carrying a sort of small Hessian sack. He puts it down on the table in front of you, Jackdaw, and he says, "There you go. That should see you right for 2 weeks. If you take a pinch of the compound, mix it with hot water and drink it. I'd advise in the evening on each day, since it may make you a little bit drowsy.
Mhm.
Just a pinch of it before you go to sleep each day, dissolved in hot
Mhm.
water. That should last you for a couple of weeks."
Very good. Very good. Uh, I presume your staff will bring a kettle if
Yeah,
asked.
yeah, yes,
Very
yes,
good.
of course.
Very
We,
good.
we can eat some water over the fire. I should advise you, however, people who have taken this particular compound have said that they have experienced some strange and often startling dreams while they have slept. Something to do with the way the herb opens and soothes the mind, I believe. Unfortunately, with dreams and the like, they're so ephemeral. It's difficult to make a concise, proper scientific study of them. More's the pity.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, perhaps one day.
Indeed, who knows? And he
All right.
pours out another tot of brandy for you all, and
Yeah. And if the lieutenant is good with the plan, I think we will make our effort to keep ourselves busy with the brandy and also probably tea. Uh, Maybe
Brandy
some
and
medicine.
tea. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, at
sample
the
it.
direction of Sir Thomas, one of his servants was like a copper kettle on the fire. After a few moments, brings it up. The water's sort of bubbling away, and you put a pinch of this compound, which has a sort of slightly sort of aniseed smell to it. It's put in the water's poured into it, and a cloud of aniseed vapor drifts off it, and it goes a sort of dark green colour as the water's added to it.
So as Thomas is kind of stepping away and whatever else, the friar will kind of softly and relatively subtly kind of just walk over and talk to him, kind of really kind of low key, kind of just um, Sir Thomas, I wish to speak to you.
Of course,
It's
Father.
the heir, as I'm sure you know, is a very confident young man, and he doesn't believe that he is in danger.
Well, I would hate to see that misplaced confidence be the downfall of him,
Yes,
especially when he may be the last heir currently surviving.
Indeed. So what I'm wondering is if you can help me put me in touch with other members of your order, or give me some um, uh, details of people that he can trust, for when things do go wrong. If we had people scattered over the city that we could potentially lean on, such a list would be very valuable in keeping him alive.
Well, I'd have to speak to the rest of the members of the order before I could give you any names. After all, the order of the divine shadows not survived this long by being incautious. And you've noticed, like, given the amount of brandy he's been like sloshing back, his speech is like a little bit more slurred than it was when he first started talking to you.
Okay. Okay. So perhaps then we could return in 3 days. Would that be enough time for you to speak to your contacts?
Yes, I should think so. Well, we have to be careful, obviously, given what the Queen's men did to the other potential heirs. We can't afford to risk losing Reynold as well.
No, absolutely not.
Well, yes,
Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
By the way, if you don't mind me asking, Father, obviously I can see you're a man of the cloth, and obviously I know Reynold. Who's the other fellow that you're with?
He is a battle-hardened soldier who has joined us in our quest.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to know that at least Reynold has some protection.
Yes, certainly a fine lieutenant.
A lieutenant?
Indeed.
Right.
And there are others who are not here with us today. But whether it is enough against the Queen and her ruffians is hard to say.
Yes, I should certainly advise you to keep your heads down, at least for the moment. If the rumours are to be true, the Queen has spies everywhere.
Yes, she does. So very well then, speak to your order members, and we will return in a number of days. Maybe 3 to 5 days we will return.
Well, it's only on the matters of the utmost import that I leave my apothecary. There's so much with us researching the plague, etc. There's so much work to be done here. It's only when one of my generous patrons is unable to make it here that I go and visit them at their homes. So most of the time you'll be able to find me around here.
Okay. Well, we shall return when we can, and hopefully then you can provide us the information we need.
Yes, of course. I'll speak to other members of the order and see what I can do.
Okay.
And presumably the two of you head back to the table after you've had this little aside.
Yeah.
Okay, so after a few minutes, the friar and Sir Thomas come and sit back down at the table where obviously Jackdaw and Lieutenant, you've been sort of talking. Have you been enjoying the tea that's been poured, Lieutenant? Or
Yep. And I guess after his instruction that you take it after you or before you go to sleep, rather, I think our dose was fairly small because we don't want to shut down right now. So
you're both having a dose, is that correct?
Unless we're sharing one.
Yep.
See what it's like.
Yep.
Okay, you drink it. It's got a slight sort of aniseedy flavour to it, and it does after a few minutes. I mean, it doesn't knock you out or anything like that, but it does start making you feel a little bit more relaxed. The various little sort of aches and pains, sort of aches in the joints. Obviously, you've been walking around for most of the day, and you've had quite a lot of exertions over the past week. They're still there, but they seem to have been dulled down a little bit. So you're feeling sort of quite relaxed as you've even had a little dose of it. But you can see why Sir Thomas said, have this before you go to bed, because you're pretty sure that if you'd had a much stronger dose, it might have made you very drowsy. You might have even fallen asleep. But at the minute, you just feel nice and relaxed and quite mellow. which obviously Fry, you'll probably notice as you walk across that probably Jackdaw and the lieutenant have got like sort of like slightly serene smiles on their faces as you walk back.
I was wondering whether a pinch of it in a pipe might be faster ingesting it into the lungs than the stomach. I'll have to try that later.
It's interesting you say that, says Sir Thomas. I wondered about that myself. I expect a little bit of the potency might be lost due to the combustion, but as you say, it should still have an effect. I've not really had a chance to. No, I'll remember that. I'll make a study of that. But yeah, if you do try that, please do let me know the results. It shouldn't cause you any more effect than drinking it, but I'd be most interested to know.
Well, while you're here, I have a hypothetical question to put to you. If I was to liken a hypothetical rebellion, perhaps it might be too strong a word, but if I was to liken a hypothetical rebellion against the Queen to a disease, what stage might that disease be at this moment in time?
Obviously, hypothetically speaking, if we were to make the analogy that the current regime is like a disease, I would say that that a careful, studied group of physicians seeking to cure this disease would first make a very careful study of the extent of the disease and how far it had spread through the body, and then they would attempt to get the relevant ingredients in place and prepared so that when an attempt was made to effect a cure, the greatest chance of success would be garnered.
So we're still at the studying stage.
If we were going with your analogy, I think that would be prudent, yes. I think you might also say that perhaps, to continue the analogy, the group of surgeons might be looking, scouring the land, you might say, for that one last key ingredient that was necessary to prepare the cure.
Very good. Well, I and my companions will also be looking then on your behest.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. I'm sorry, I don't even know your name, and he holds his hand out towards you.
Lieutenant Richard Uffington, at your service.
As you say that, he snatches his hand away, and he turns to you, Fry, with a look of panic on his face, and he's like, Father, we've got to get Reynolds out of here now. And he goes as though to try and presumably grab Jackdaw and haul him out the chair, but he's obviously had a little bit too much drinking, and stumbles a bit and falls back into his chair.
So I'll just put my hand on him and say, relax, my son. The lieutenant here has been beside us in far worse scrapes than this. His own father, who I believe you believe him aligned to, is an enemy of ours, and is not long for this world.
He looks at him unsure, and he says, "But it was at Lord Uffington's instructions that we very nearly lost the heir in the first place."
Indeed.
I shall stand. You have my word, sir. I'll grasp the hilt of my sword. Totter a little. I am with you in this endeavour.
At which point his natural instincts as an apothecary seem to overcome his stronger feelings, and he very gently takes you by the shoulder and guides you back to the seat, and he's like, "Please, don't go overexciting yourself. Given the concoction you've just taken, you need to take it easy." I'm sorry about my actions, but as I said, it is due to the actions of Lord Uffington that we almost lost the heir. And he gestures at Jackdaw. In the first place, if we had not had a man who had infiltrated his organisation, I feared the heir would not now be sitting here with us.
Well, and as the friar says, he's on the list. Well, he didn't say that, but that's what he meant. If you know what I mean.
You had to read between the lines to get that bit. But yeah.
Indeed, when there was the explosion and we heard no more from our man, we feared that our worst fears had been realised and that both he and the heir had been lost. And when the weeks passed and we heard nothing more from our agent, we feared that the heir was dead. And until I met you on the bridge, and he gestures to Jack Dorigan.
As we know, my memory is shot. Who was your man that infiltrated this group?
A good man by the name of Samuel Longbottom.
Longbottom. Does Mr. Longbottom have a family?
Yes, he has a wife and a young daughter.
I just nod.
I trust the order are seeing to their needs.
Of course, we take care of them as best we can without tipping our hand. After all, in order to keep them safe, Samuel didn't reveal his involvement with the order to them, but we try and make sure their needs are seen to. It is my hope that eventually, when his daughter is of age, that she may take on the humble craft that I practice, so that we may at least give her a place and a noble craft to pursuing this city.
Indeed. How were the aim? How were the aim?
Now, and Friar, you might wish to not hear what we are about to discuss next, just to make sure. Sir Thomas, what does it mean to you if I say he's divine shadow?
He looks around and says, "Well, that's the name of my order. The Order of the Divine Shadow."
You must forgive me. It bubbled up to the surface at the mention of Mr. Longbottom's name, and I had no way to. I did not know what it was.
He says, "Let me explain. There's a." He looks at the friar as he says this. Although I am a man of science, as I've said, there are many people, members of the cloth, like your good friend the friar, who are members of my order. See, I'm sure you'll understand that I'm hesitant to give out any more details, but there is a belief amongst some of them, and I personally believe it to be more of an analogy than an actual fact. There is a belief amongst certain members of the church, going back years and years, that when God first summoned light to create the world, that light cast a shadow which was imbued with some portion of the divine spark that first created that life. I'm not referring. They're not referring to the devil or anything of that matter. It's a simple fact that light casts shadow. One does not exist without the other. I believe personally, it's an analogy for the fact that everything has its place in this world. The Order of the Divine Shadow believe that power, that ability, whatever you want to call it. Like say, I do not hold to the mystical, but it is believed that power was passed down through the Oculon bloodline as its most recent hosts, I suppose you might call them, and our order was set up to help protect that as loyal followers of the previous regime. See, I personally do not believe in the more mystical aspects of it. I think it's simply a story, but nevertheless, I think the order follows worthy goals.
Let me be frank here, Thomas, as I haven't been so far. I don't know if this is a new thing, but it is not in my nature to be so. And you mentioned that I came to visit a couple of days ago.
That's correct.
That was not me. There was no drunken bender to cause my memory loss. It is the fact that I was not here. I was with my companions elsewhere, tending to matters of great import, not to myself, but to the lieutenants. And you have spoken to someone who looked like me in better state of being, as I understand.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. This is so fantastical what you're telling me. I was sat no further away than I am from you now, from this person. I would be prepared to lay my hand on the holy book of Gale and swear that it was yourself who sat in front of me. Albeit you looked a little tireder than you do now, but...
Yes, well, you have your ways, and I hold up my drug tea. Nevertheless, Sir Thomas, it was most certainly not me. It was either... well, I mean, it was either a sorcerer or someone with access to the theater, I think. No, either way, it was not me. So it is imperative that, Sir Thomas, you recall as much as you can of what this person discussed while they were here.
But this person, again, forgive me, this is astounding what you're telling me, but we spoke, as we have done now, a little bit about the order, about you, he, whatever, being the heir. He chatted to me a little bit about his childhood, his growing up. Then he told me about what had happened with being kidnapped by that dreadful cult, and then performing some sort of strange ceremony on him, and then
what did this person say about the escape that they made from the cult?
Well, he couldn't really tell me much about the escape. He said his memory was had been playing tricks on him since the ceremony was performed on him. I assumed that he had been drugged. Sorry, whatever. I assume that he had been drugged, and that perhaps explained his lack of memory. Somehow he had found his way free. He didn't even recall meeting our man who we had infiltrate the cult.
Did they mention where they were going, what they were doing?
I know he said he wanted to find out what exactly had happened to him. He said, like I say, said his last clear memory before sort of finding himself in the city was of lying on a stone slab, and a strange ceremony being performed, and seeing people in robes, and feeling his flesh being cut. I don't even like to think about it. His flesh being cut into.
That sounds familiar.
He said, after that, he said his memory was a blur and pretty much a blank to him, and until he found himself by the riverside, and obviously realizing that these people might still be out there, he laid low for a while.
I look to the friar and the lieutenant and just say, what do you make all of this? Do you think it plausible? I mean, I'm fairly implausible. I should be gone. I should not be here. So, what do you think of this? This other person who I take note has all the memories that I do not have.
Um, I believe that it is an assassin who is trying to find you. I would be very skeptical of such a story. But I do not know how to find him. It I do not know how they have changed their appearance to reflect your own. Um, Tell me, Sir Thomas, did he say how he was pulled from the river?
Well, no, he didn't mention anything about being pulled from the river. He said that he said the last thing he remembered is there was some sort of commotion, and he managed to find his way to the sewers, and once there out of the sewers and into the city, and then he holed himself up until he was sure that the people weren't going to come back and try and take him again.
Um, did he say whereabouts in the river he washed up?
He says, yes, he did, as a matter of fact. Let me see, where was it? He said that he'd washed up on the banks of the river near. I think he said it was Nether Scale High, just a river from Bridgetown.
Okay. And did he give the indication that he was holed up near there or somewhere else?
He didn't tell me. He didn't really seem to want to give much information away about his whereabouts. You see, obviously, he seemed quite suspicious, and given what you had been through, I can't say I blame him.
There's no chance that the heir has a brother or a cousin or someone else who might look somewhat like him.
Well, I'm not aware of the heir having any siblings. I mean, I could be wrong, and obviously I'll check with the rest of the order when I speak to them. But I'm not aware of any siblings.
Perhaps alert your comrades to only speak to the heir when he is accompanied by a lieutenant and a friar.
Yes, of course. If you think that's wise.
I do.
Well, what do you want me to do if I see this fellow again?
That is a good question.
Play along with him. But don't tell him anything else.
Yes, of course, sir.
And no talk of me.
No, of course.
There is only one of him as far as he's concerned.
Yes, of course. I won't say a word.
Well, Sir Thomas, I want to thank you for all this, even though this does not make things easier on any level and with no measure.
Well, I'm sorry if I've made your task more difficult. It was not my intention.
I know, and it is only the fact that knowledge increases pain, as I think the ancients were fond of saying. Eventually, I would like to think that this is an opportunity, but for the immediate future, we really cannot have one more of me on the streets, especially one that seems less savvy. And that's not my ego speaking. I kind of don't have one. I don't think. They might step into something that will come back to me, and that something might be your friend, Friar, the witch hunter, and I would rather not tangle with the church in that way.
I feel one way or another we will eventually tango with Aldred Malibran. But I do concur that it would be better if we could find this person and understand their story. There cannot be too many places they can have holed up in Nether Scalehide. Perhaps we should get a boat across and search. If nothing else, seeing you might draw him out.
A good point.
Yeah, presuming he was telling the truth.
Indeed. Indeed.
We'd find out either way. And
Yes.
perhaps drive him out, like you say. Drive him out into the open where we can deal with him.
Yes, or at least speak to him.
I'll have another drink.
Oh yeah, he has, of course. Yeah, I might have one myself.
Yeah.
Indeed.
He pours another, like, it's just the bottle's getting a little bit lower. He calls over to one of the servants, and they bring another bottle of brandy over. Please enjoy your pipe. Again, I'm sorry about my initial reaction, Lieutenant.
Probably understandable. My father is a bit of a bore.
Well, I don't wish. I know you're not particularly affiliated with them, if what the Good Friday says is true, but I don't wish to speak ill of your family or seem impolite, but it cannot be a coincidence, as far as I'm concerned, that shortly after Queen Elspeth came to power, such a lucrative trading contracts were awarded to the Uffington family.
Yes, I feel rather embarrassed that I benefited from those education and my equipment in the military, my rank. I must repay. I must repay to the people.
Well, it's a noble goal, and please set your mind at rest. If, as you say, you're ignorant of the doings of your family, then and you took no part in them, then you are clearly not to blame. But it does you credit that you would seek to repay anyway. It is something that I've often mused upon myself as someone who was born into a noble family. I had the benefits of a good education, good fortune. I have rich patrons who allow me this wonderful place and the ability to train others and pass my trade along and keep servants. And I feel that by acting as a surgeon and an apothecary and helping out those who I can when I can, that's my way of trying to put back in for all the blessings that have been heaped upon me, but by no more than a happenstance of birth, that those who under other circumstances may be seen as equally if not more worthy have been denied.
Indeed. That raised another question in my mind. Are you aware of a connection between the Laughing Plague and the rise of the Queen?
I'm not aware of a direct connection. No, my attempts to cure the plague have been based entirely on my research, and unfortunately, people once they ever enter the final stage of the plague die so very quickly. It's been difficult to obtain enough specimens to study the disease. There's so much we don't know about it. I mean, if I was to be honest with you, we don't even know entirely how it spreads. And we don't know how long from the initial infection until the first symptoms start displaying and manifesting. We don't even really know how long after initial infection can the person pass that infection along. Then maybe entire, and he's getting waving his arms a bit about now. As you can see, like his cheeks have gone a bit like rosy tinted as he's like chuffing his brandy back. There may be whole swathes of people out there not aware that they possess the plague and yet going around and infecting others. And with every day, there seem to be more people dying of it. I mean, you can hardly notice, or fail to notice, that the once bustling streets of the city are now relatively empty. I mean, people try and hide it. They try and go about their normal business. But if you look in their eyes when they're not talking, you can see that everyone is scared. No one knows who the next victim of the plague is going to be. We seem to be in a quiet spell at the moment. The number of people dying of it seems to have fallen off a little recently, but until we know why that's the case, I believe it's too early to get our hopes up that the worst of it has passed us by.
It certainly is. We and I guess I'll look at the other two before I say this, but we believe that the plague is not natural and is caused by a cult who call themselves the Cult of the Laughing God.
His eyes widened when you said it. He says the very same cult that kidnapped the heir.
Indeed, that is our working assumption, and we have tangled with them a number of times, and we have forced them to move from their preferred location. And I believe that this is why they are not conducting their experiments, which in turn is why not that many people are currently dying from the plague.
Well, I must admit, whilst I can't see how such an organisation could cause such a plague,
sorcery is how.
I confess I have no great understanding of sorcery, although obviously I would be a fool to doubt its existence. But if I assume that you are correct in what you are saying, that it would make sense that given their if they're no longer able to practice whatever means they're calling the plague into existence, that you forcing them to relocate and spend their efforts elsewhere might have brought us this Yes, now you mention it, the last reprieve we have, it was shortly after the report of the explosion that I believe, I've not been able to find any evidence to support this, I believe that our agent, Mr. Longbottom, when he was attempting to rescue the heir, used an explosive of some manner, perhaps to discourage pursuit. It may have even cost him his life, since we've not been able to locate him. But a large part of the base of the Cult of the Laughing God, which was located in Witchwood, was no doubt destroyed in the blast. And shortly after that explosion, we did have another period where the plague deaths seemed to slacken off for a few months. It was only a couple of weeks later that we started to see more cases of the disease occurring again.
Okay, so then that would coincide with what we would expect, and it is some 3 days past, maybe 4, since we forced them to relocate. So we may have another 10 days of peace before they start again.
Now, obviously, the most efficient way to root out these people, were they not of such influence, would be to set the law on them. But I obviously we know that at least one established noble family is is in deep with these people. One who is a staunch supporter of the current regime, although I don't know if there's any direct connection between the Queen and this cult. But obviously we can't risk just turning it over to the law if they may be the very same people who are involved in this matter.
Indeed. What about your friend Aldred Malloburn?
But I'm not sure I'd call the witch hammer a friend. He has a obviously I am on retainer for the Grand Malefice House. When their members are injured, as was Witch Hunter Malloburn, they know that they can come here and receive the finest of the care I have to offer. But I'm not sure I'd call him a friend. We've spoke on several occasions when I've treated him. He seems to get a bit wrapped up in his thoughts, his reminiscences here. He despite my protestations, Witch Hunter Malloburn never listens when I tell him that he must have strict bed rest, or otherwise his wounds will reopen. He's a very driven young man.
Mm.
Did he say how he'd received his current wounds?
Yes, he said that he'd encountered a creature in one of the midden wards. I'm sure you're aware, but on the outskirts of Great London, where the city gives way to farmlands, there are a number of caves, ravines. The land is less well tended to. I believe it was on the northern edge of the. I think he said it was. I think he said it was Harrow Ward. I think it was where he said that a lot of the city's waste is dumped there. They have various midden workers who work on it to plough it under, to dispose of it. I don't know the exact details, but he said he'd been called there because the midden workers were afeared of a creature that had been preying on their number. He apparently confronted the creature, some sort of huge primitive from his description, and he'd apparently been able to defeat it, and but the creature had dealt him a severe injury, which when he goes, hold on a second, there is something else. Yes, Witch Hunter Malloburn, he gave me payment for his treatment. I did explain to him that as I'm on retainer for the Grand Malefice House, he didn't need to do so, but he insisted, and he gave me this, and he takes out like a small handkerchief, like a little scented handkerchief, and when he opens it up, there's what appears to be a very small diamond in the middle of the handkerchief.
Okay.
Yeah, so said he insisted I take it. Said that he'd taken it from the body of the creature when he'd slain it. Says, although I must confess there that I wrapped it in this handkerchief, but he says that there's a foul smell lingering about this, and he says, have a smell of this. I've never smelled anything like it.
I'm fine, thank you very much. But be sure and put it to good use.
Yes, he wraps it up in again. It's that lavender scented like handkerchief, and tucks it back in his pocket.
So then, Sir Thomas, would you be amenable to us staying here since my companions have taken their tea?
Oh yes, of course. I wouldn't advise you to be, and obviously it's getting sort of like a bit later on in the day due to where you're travelling around and stuff. You just see it's starting to get dark outside. He says, well, yes, of course, I wouldn't dream of sending you out in the night, especially not with this dismal rain and your friends having taken the concoctions. I'll speak to some of my staff. We do have a couple of areas that are set up for patients who need to remain here, who cannot see their way to leaving due to illness or sickness or injury. It's not exactly I'm sure what you're accustomed to, Lieutenant, but the beds will serve well enough at least for a night's rest.
You'd be surprised what I've put up with recently.
Well, if there's anything you'd care to tell me, I'm aware that I've been talking for most of the evening. If there's anything you'd care to tell me, I mean, I'm aware that we've been talking about the air, but how is it the two of you come to make his acquaintance and come to be here?
We were, we're all drawn together in some almost an altercation with the witch hammer. Isn't that right, Friar?
Indeed. And we are ultimately all drawn to our cause, which is to rid the city of this plague.
That is our goal.
Drawn from many.
I'll certainly drink to that.
Yeah, drawn from many diverse backgrounds, and brought together by one purpose.
Perhaps we should send a runner to tell Michael where we are.
Indeed.
If he returns.
Well, but if you have need of it, I'm sure I can send one of my servants out with a message. And he has one of his servants bring like a parchment and a quill and a little pot of ink over, and he says, "Please, if you want to write a message to your companion, if you want to tell him that he's welcome to come and meet you here and stay the night with yourselves if you wish. And if you know where he is, I'll have one of my servants take the message directly to him. As I said, I can't possibly send you out in the night in this rain."
Indeed. It might have to be a verbal message.
Yes, of course. So, what's the message? And I'll have one of my...
Just tell young Michael that we're here, and to come and join us when he can.
Yes, of course. I know. Where might we find your friend?
That is a good question.
I would imagine it would keep popping back to our new abode.
Oh, you recently purchased some property.
We did. It's very nice. Multiple levels.
Oh, splendid. What area of the city do you hail from?
The religious quarter, would you believe?
Oh, Bishopsgate. Yeah. Well, that seems appropriate. Given that you keep company with a man of the cloth.
It's very nice.
Yes, I don't have much call to travel there myself, and my work here keeps me quite busy. I do visit a couple of the churches in Queen's Gate from time to time. But I seldom have much cause to travel as far as Bishopsgate.
Indeed. If you can leave the message with the priest in the green tree. What was his name? Sorry now. Just the,
What are you talking about? Father Bernard.
That is him, yes. My notes are all over the place. But I do have him. He's in here somewhere. But yes, we'll send a message to Father Bernard.
Yes, of course. And Sir Thomas calls over one of his a young lad who's sort of like working, doing a little bit of cleaning around the place, and he gives him a couple of silver shillings and asks him to take this message to the church of Father Bernard and to stop by your property to see if there's anybody. He says, "Well, what does your companion look like?" So I can tell the boy who to keep an eye out for.
He's big and fat, and he has a signet ring, a very dominant signet ring.
Very well, then. Have you got all that, Jack? Which one of the young boys like? Oh yes, I think so. I think so, Mr. Grace. I said, well, there's a couple of shillings. Off you go, lad. And the young lad takes the shillings and he heads off.
Excellent. So, should we retire for the night and potentially investigate Nether Scalehide in the morning?
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm nodding off now.
And I think you can see that as the lieutenant's talking, he's like slowly been like sliding down on the chair, which possibly quite coincidentally, Sir Thomas is like slowly like slumping down in the chair a little bit as well as you're talking. His speech is getting like a little bit more slowly. So, yeah, so I think I might retire for the evening soon, but come quickly before drowsiness overtakes us entirely. Let me show you to one of the patients' rooms where you can bed down for the evening. There's not much in the way of delicacies in there, but there is a jug of water, some food, etc. And there are beds. Like I say, they're not the most comfortable, but they'll serve.
They will indeed.
I myself have such a bed. It's my belief that the least I could do with the generous patronage that I'm given is I try and spend as little as possible on luxuries, so that I have either for myself or my staff, so that we have as much of it available as possible to pour into acquiring the rare plants that we grow within the bounds of this building, and for the treatment of those who are ill. After all, not everyone who requires treatment is able to pay quite as much in money as my other patrons.
Does your primary benefactor have a name, or is it like an organisation rather than a person?
Well, I have a number of benefactors. I've worked for many of the noble families, even your own on occasion. Obviously, I can't afford to be too choosy about people I treat. If someone comes to me and they are sick, regardless of any other feelings I may have about them, it's my job as a surgeon and an apothecary to attempt to heal their sickness above and beyond any other considerations.
Like an oath.
Yes, quite so. But anyway, come with me. I'll show you to the room.
Thank you.
And he shows you to a small side room which has like a few sort of beds, single beds in it. There's like I say a jug of water on a small table. There's a few sort of dried provisions of fruit, etc. that are dotted about, dates, whatnot. There's a small bookshelf again with a few of these sort of like coffee table books on it. He says, "Well, this should do you for the evening. My quarters are just down the hall. If you should need anything, either there's a small bell over there. If you ring it, if I don't answer, one of the servants will."
Very good. Thank you, Sir Thomas.
He looks at it. Obviously, he's brought the bottle with him, like the sort of half a bottle that remains of the second bottle of brandy. He looks at it for a few moments, and then he puts it down on the small round table next to the jug of water in your room, and he says, good evening to you then. I'm sure I'll speak to you on the morrow."
Indeed. Sleep well.
And yourselves. He shuts the door behind him as he steps out of the room.
I set about to, well, let's say I brought like my cup or my glass, whatever we were using to drink from. I brought it with me. I make myself a portion of the brandy, and I put like a proper portion of the medicine into the brandy and stir it with my little finger. And as we're sitting down to actually sleep, I will down the medicine.
Yep, you down this medicine mixed with like brandy, and within about 10 minutes you're finding it. Don't get me wrong, you're not finding it unpleasant. In fact, you're feeling like incredibly relaxed, but you're finding it like difficult to keep your eyes open and your head keeps going.
Yeah,
and so like drooping.
Yeah, and I will find a bed to lay down.
Yeah,
with the intent of like because the Sir Thomas sold it as like this powder that brings on the dreams from the other side, and this is what we're going to do, hopefully. So that's the idea that goes around in Jackdaw's very relaxed head, like, oh boy, I saw a dream last night. What will this unlock? Let's
Okay.
see. And then he drifts off.
So the rest of you see like Jackdaw put a pinch of this herbal powder in like this big slug of brandy, chins it down, and then he starts like goes and lies down with the bed. Within like about 2 minutes, you can hear him sort of like breathing a bit more heavily as he's obviously drifted off to sleep, leaving just the friar and the lieutenant still awake. Although obviously you're starting to feeling a little bit drowsy yourself, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
Although you've not just like anaesthetised yourself quite as rapidly as Jackdaw has.
I grin down at Jackdaw. Pleasant dreams, Jackdaw. Well, good night.
Good night,
friend.
Lieutenant.
Good night, my friend. See you on the morrow.
And the
stretch
fire
out.
too will also, yeah, crash out.
Okay, and you fall asleep. Now, Friar, you have fairly normal dreams about whatever you deem fit. However, Lieutenant Uffington, as you drift asleep, you find yourself dreaming as you one of the strange things about this powder, this herbal concoction that you've given is a lot of times when you start to dream, some people don't realise they're dreaming while they're dreaming. Some people come to that realisation as they're having a dream. However, literally, as soon as you're in a dream, maybe it's an effect of the powder, maybe it's your self-awareness. As soon as you start dreaming, Lieutenant, you know for a fact this is a dream. And you find yourself, you're stood in the darkness, and as you look up ahead, there's almost like a sort of soft spotlight, and you can see a pale-looking woman with dark hair cascading down over her shoulders, facing away from you, and you can hear the soft sound of crying coming from the woman.
I approach slowly.
Okay, absolutely fine. The woman seems unaware of your approach.
I start singing the lullaby I used to sing to her, to Juliet.
As you sing that, the sobbing stops and the woman turns around, and it is indeed Juliet, looking as pale and beautiful as she was when you last saw her in the upper middle gloom. As she turns around, you can see red streaks of tears that appear to have run down the side of her face. She turns toward you, and a look of shock comes over her face as though she's surprised to see you.
I take a handkerchief and dab away the tears.
You go to
Don't cry.
You go to dab away the tears, but they smear and streak oddly, and as you bring the handkerchief away, you can smell blood on the handkerchief.
You're bleeding.
She looks at you and she says, "Aren't we all?"
I look down.
You don't see any wounds on you. And she lays a gentle hand on the side of your face, and then she says, "Perhaps some of us are simply better at hiding our wounds than others."
Bleeding where it isn't seen.
She leans forward and she kisses you on the side of your face. Then she kisses you on the neck, and as she does so, you feel like a sharp stabbing pain in your neck.
What are you doing?
As you say that, you start to feel woozy as you feel this sharp pain. You say, "What are you doing?" At which point she almost like leaps back from you, and you can see there's red smeared all around her mouth, but she turns her face away, covering it with her arm as though she doesn't want you to look at her. And she says, "You shouldn't have to see me like this."
Now I'm bleeding.
At which point you hear a familiar paternal voice from your childhood from behind you say, "Aren't we all?"
Father, I'll say in turn.
And you turn round to see your father stood there in all of his pomp and finery, his pendulous gut hanging over the seam of his breeches, and you see that as he lifts his hands up, his arms are soaked in blood. And then he says, "Perhaps some of us are simply better at hiding our wounds than others."
I'll give you one to hide. I'll reach out and there's rows of swords on the wall for some reason, and I draw some and rush towards him.
You rush towards him. He remains stood there with his bloody hands held up. He doesn't make any move. As you rush towards, like I say, you reach out inexplicably, you find a sword hanging on the wall, and you rush towards him. You draw sort of level with where he is, holding this sword, and he's still stood there with his arms dripping blood.
And I stop in mid-stroke. I can't do it. And the sword falls from my grasp. Forgive me, Father.
He smiles down at you and he says, "Of course I forgive you. How could I not? After all, it is my blood that flows through your veins." Then from behind you, you hear Juliet's voice say, "That's what it always comes down to, isn't it? Blood." And then you wake up in a cold sweat.
Blood, I say.
Yeah, so Fry, you since you've stayed up late praying, getting your spells back, etc., you're probably just like, "Oh, just gonna get to sleep. Oh, yeah, just gonna have a nice relax." When you're woken by like the lieutenant just like sitting up in bed, sweat pouring off him, and he's just like, "Blood!" While that's going on, Jackdaw also dreams. Jackdaw, you find yourself back in a memory you'd hoped perhaps never to revisit. You're once more lying on the stone slab. You can feel the knives of the cloaked figures who stand around you, sort of cutting into your skin, inscribing patterns which by now you're all too familiar with as they score a lattice work of scars and symbols across your exposed flesh. As there's general murmuring around you as four of them hold you down, one at each arm, one at each leg, and a fifth cuts into you as you're sort of lying face down on this slab. You hear one of the voices near you say, "He's nearly ready. Once we've finished hollowing him out, he'll make a perfect vessel." And then you sort of open your eyes. You can't really move your head much, but you open your eyes, and as you look past the robed figures stood around you, in the darkness just behind them, and unseen by the figures who surround you, you can see another figure, a grey-skinned figure wearing ragged clothes, holding a knife in each hand. It's you.
I'm probably in because they're holding me down. Do I have like a gag or something?
Nope.
Okay, so am I like before I like fully realize that? Oh, by the way, like, this is a question for you. Am I also lucid dreaming, or is this? Do I realize that I'm in a dream?
You know that this is a dream.
Yeah. So, am I making noises, or am I just like silent as they cut me off?
Strangely enough, you're not making any sounds, and it's weird. Although you're feeling the pain of them cutting into you, there's an odd disconnect between the pain. It's like your body knows that you're in pain,
Mhm.
but it's almost as if somehow it's not reaching your brain. So you're like, so it's more a case of you're like, oh, people are carving into me and that hurts, rather than like, oh god, my back.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as you're sort of like, as you're sort of pondering this, you're trying to think about other things and what led you to get here. But it's strange, every time you start trying to think about how you came here, things that happened before, it's as though the thoughts just slip away from you, as though they're like sand in your hand. You can't quite hold on to them.
Mhm.
And as you sort of look past them, the sort of slightly phantasmal figure that you saw that looks like you seems to be getting more real, more solid by the second.
I will frantically try to um, like pick a memory and hold on to it as long as I can, just to see like what happens to it, like some specific moment of like walking in like a dining room with like a glass of fine wine in my hand. I will like fixate on that particular memory, that small event, and try to see what happens as this thing happens.
You try and hold on to this memory, and you sort of shut your eyes and you're trying to picture it in your mind's eye, which is very strange. It's almost like you're trying to like dream within a dream.
Yeah, we need to go deeper.
Yeah, it's like dreamception. You're trying to hold on to this memory, and you can almost picture yourself walking through this well lit hall. You're holding a crystal goblet with a fine red wine in it. Then, as you sort of raise it to your lips, you realise there's no wine in the glass. Then, as you lower your hand down, there's no glass in your hand anymore. You look around the hallway that you're in at the portraits that were lining the walls, and now they just appear to be like empty frames, like washed out, faded sort of echoes of the people that once occupied this portrait. And the whole scene around you seems to be getting more hazy and indistinct, as though first the colour starts to drain out of it, then the outlines seem to be blurring until you're just sort of stood in this formless grey space.
Is the scene gone from my memory? Like, do I remember what I was doing at all? Okay.
You vaguely you think you were walking somewhere. You think you were trying to. There was something in your hand, or maybe you had your hand on something. You can't remember.
Yeah. Well, that that does leave me pretty powerless. So I'm going to try and tell these people carving me up that they're making a mistake. They're making a serious, deadly mistake, and they should reconsider.
You try and say this, but perhaps it's part of the ceremony. Perhaps you draw, but your words just come out as like almost like a sort of slurring, like, and you're vaguely aware of that as you open your eyes, of them sort of lifting you up, and so you hear one of them say, "The first part of the ceremony is complete. He's hollow now. Soon he'll be ready to be a vessel, but we need to give his body time to recover, or it'll be consumed." And they start carrying you away as they sort of carry you into darkness, and darkness falls over you. You close your eyes, and when you open them again, you're stood behind a line of red-robed figures, and you're watching as another group are carrying you out of the room.
I look at my hand. Do I have a crossbow?
You don't have a crossbow, but as you look down, you have a knife in each hand.
All right. So they're carrying me somewhere.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's like they're carrying you, but it's not you. You're watching them carry someone who looks like you out of the room. It's as though your view's shifted, and now you're stood several feet away from where you were, but your body's still there and still being carried out of the room. And these people with their back to you wearing the robes don't seem to be aware that you're behind them.
Because they're wearing robes. I'm going to try and reach out to like a loose sleeve and try to just like touch the fabric
Okay, you reach out and you touch the fabric. At which point the person wearing the robe turns round and he's like, "Wait a minute, who are you? What the hell's going on here?"
He's gonna get the knife.
Yeah, that's fine. We're in a dream. We're not making any rolls for this. So yeah,
Yeah.
as he's like opening his mouth to scream, you stab him in the throat with a knife, and he's like, is all that comes out. A couple more of these people in like robes are sort of spinning around now.
If possible, I will try to stab as many as I can. Like not like I just want to tag them. So like
Yeah.
if I can get them in the midsection, I will just try and stab everyone each like one time.
Yeah,
And-
there's a few minutes where like they draw knives out of their belts. There's a couple of minutes where you're like parrying blows from them and sort of scoring like small cuts on them. But after a few minutes, they're sort of lying on the ground. A couple of them are dead. One of them's like bleeding quite heavily. He's clasped a hand over his chest. He's bleeding and he's staring at you with like a bewildered look on his face. Then someone comes running out of the darkness where they took the other you, wearing similar robes, and he's like, "The prisoners escaped. The prisoners!" And then he sort of stops and he like looks down as he sees these people lying on the floor and like you're standing over them.
I'm going to point a bloody blade at him, and I will point the blade down to the ground and I say kneel.
He starts sort of going like that as though he's going to go down. Then you see him pull up a crossbow attached to his belt.
Mm-hmm.
He squeezes the trigger and a bolt whistles just past your ear. You can hear in the distance what sounds like a bell being rung, and you can hear like footsteps, like. But they don't appear to be running towards wherever you are. They appear to be like running elsewhere.
Yeah. What's he doing after he shoots the crossbow?
He's trying to reload it.
Yeah. So as he's trying to reload it, I wanna like get at him and, if I can, choke him out. And if I can't get a good hold, I'll just like bash his head and try to get him to like lose consciousness.
Yeah, you basically like grab him in a headlock and you like choke him out.
And as he loses consciousness, I will drag him. Is there an exit?
You look around and you see what appears to be a tunnel stretching off. From the foul smell coming from it, you would guess that maybe it heads into the sewers.
And there's, okay, the bell is coming from there.
No, the bell's not coming from down this tunnel.
Yeah.
It's coming from the darkness where you were taking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So into the sewers we go with my new friend.
Okay, you start dragging this body down the sewers, and after what seems like an eternity, you see a light at the end of the tunnel, and as you sort of stagger out up to your knees in water, dragging this unconscious figure with you, you see that you appear to be standing on the banks of the Great Thames water, looking around quickly, sort of like looking up and down. You think you're somewhere in Nether Scale High. As you look off to the east, you can just about make out Bridgetown through the early morning fog. Then as you're sort of like contemplating what to do, you see what appears to be a small rowboat with a fisherman on it going past. He's literally within like 5 feet of where you're standing. He's close to shore. As he's sort of like poling like past with his oars, he looks at you and he's like, "You're alright, mate." Like, "Fucking hell, how much has he had?" He's like nodding at the unconscious guy that you're like dragging along with you.
Too much. Just trying to look out for him.
He's like, "Wow, he looks like he needs it. Where you off to?"
I've had some myself, so I'll need to, and I'll check down the shoreline, and I think we'll be going to, maybe pick up something to eat at the the swine ward.
He says, well, I'm heading Swinewood way, pick up some leather goods and whatnot. So if you want, hop in, save you dragging him through the streets. So as well, you got to cop it from the Peakers for having someone that drunk out on the streets.
Yeah, that would be far too kind, but I will graciously accept.
And you climb into the boat. You put your drunk friend in the boat. Helped by this fisherman who then starts to like row off towards Swinewood, and he's like, what's your name anyway, fella? He's like, I'm Jacob.
Does anything come to me in the dream? Like, is it obvious from dream logic what my name should be?
You're pretty sure your name's Reynold Oculum, although you seem to remember that you don't use the Ocular name. You've just been called like Reynold as far as you can remember since you've been tiny.
Yep. It's Ray. Well, short for Reynold, but like that's my dad's name, and I want to sort of,
He sort of Jacob shakes your hand, and he's like, "Well, nice to meet you, Ray. Don't suppose you mind giving us a hand with these oars? It's go in this direction upriver. Well, easier with two, if you know what I mean."
Yeah, sure. Let me just get him situated, and I'll depress his arteries for a bit, just to like get him like reset him in the unconsciousness, and like sort of make a fuss about like settling him right in the boat, and then I'll get to rowing.
Okay, and the two of you row off towards Swinewood, and a few moments later, as you're in your dream, you're sort of reaching the shore. You can smell the leather tanneries, etc., of Swinewood, and you step out of the boat onto the shore. You stumble as a wave causes the boat to go like that as you step out of it, and you fall face down into the mud. You wake up as there's a bang as you've rolled over in your bed, and you've rolled out of the bed, and you're lying face down on the floor. So, Friar, you're just like, just gonna settle down. It's not a nice bit of sleep now. I've done my praying and praise Gale and all that. Yes, can get a bit of sleep. And then suddenly you hear the lieutenant go, "Blood!" And you're like, what? What's going on? And then you hear as Jackdaw rolls out of his bed. Over to you guys. As the closing scene of the game, there's a slightly bewildered Friars like watching the nocturnal antics of you two. What do we close out with?
I'm going to pick up a spare pillow and just throw it at Jackdaw and just go back to sleep, stop making noise, and roll over.
Yeah, so Jackdaw, you're sort of like lifting yourself off the floor, and like so everything's a little bit hazy because you're like, oh yeah, I think I'm waking up, and also there's a soft like as a pillow hits you on the side of the face, fairly gently. He's just gone like that. He's not like lobbed at you, just like onto the side of your face, and you just hear the Friar's voice going, "Go to sleep."
Yeah, and because I'm all out of sorts because of drinking too much and also medicine, and visions. So I'll take the billow and like try and get back, and I'll mumble and spit some spittle out at the same time. I'll mumble something about there's I'm somewhere else. just turn back in with two pillows now, one on my head and one below.
Okay, and the last word or words for this session will go to Lieutenant Uffington, who's just sat up and shouted "blood." Then a pillow just like whistles past his face, impacts with Jackdaw, and you turn around and see like the Friar like getting down under the blanket, going, "Go back to sleep, Jackdaw." You say, "Jackdaw, so there's somewhere else," and you're still like sat up like covered in sweat in your bed. So the final words go to the lieutenant.
I'll reach over to the table, lift the jug of water, and go, "Blood is thicker than water, but water's more refreshing." I'll pour myself a drink.
You pick up the water, and as you pick it up, you see like there's still half full bottle of brandy behind it.
And brandy's even more refreshing. Reach over, glug, glug, glug.
And I think as the friar desperately tries to get some sleep, Jackdaw's already passed out, and the lieutenant chugs off a bottle of brandy to help him get back to sleep. That is where we're going to end the session for this evening, guys. Thank you very much for playing. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent.
Obviously, I'll sort out XP over the weekend, then I'll Facebook that to you. But for now, it just remains to say thanks to my wonderful players, and hopefully we'll have a full house again next time. So thank you anyone who's watching it an hour in the future. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.
Bye bye.
See ya.